Alright, hey everyone, this is Nickster, and I'm going to be doing something that I meant to do months ago, but I've been putting it off over and over because inevitably it was going to be something really daunting given the size of this project, and also because, I've had a couple of issues with, recording stuff. I was originally going to use a different mic for this video, but I had a lot of issues with it, so I'm just going to be using my computer's mic for this. But I'm going to be doing a breakdown of every single sample that I used in Frontier Psychiatrist by the Avalanches, but it uses newer samples. So to start off, let me say, obviously this project was a follow-up to the face-to-face video I put out back in early 2024, face-to-face by Daft Punk, but it uses newer samples. And like I did with that one, I'm also going to be going into detail about every single sample I used in this project here. But before I do that, I want to kind of explain how this project came about and kind of dive into my whole process for making it from beginning to end. So if you just want to get to me talking about the samples, then I'll put up a timestamp that you can skip to. But for now, I want to, give a little backstory about this.
Boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic.
So the idea to do this song in particular as a follow-up to the face-to-face one first came to me around early 2024, around the time I did the first one. I don't know, it might have been February, March, or around then, 2024. I was thinking, what other sample-heavy songs would this concept work well with? Because I feel like this was a almost like a infinite money, infinite view strategy. Just keep doing songs with this in this format. And of course, I thought of Avalanches as one of the first options for a potential sequel or follow-up. Frontier Psychiatrist was one of the first songs I thought of because it's one of my favorite songs off the album. It's one of my favorite songs, period. And for some reason, one day while I was thinking about that song and thinking about like a hypothetical remake of it, I instantaneously realized how the bass line of that song, Frontier Psychiatrist, sounds vaguely similar to like the intro, like ambient string sounds in the Gorillaz song Plastic Beach. Not the album, but the title track off of the album, Plastic Beach, in terms of like vibe and tonality. So I figured both songs are already in the same key, so if I were to do a remake of that, I could just chop up the intro Plastic Beach to have it match the bass line of Frontier Psychiatrist, and it would probably work really well as a replacement. So I decided then that song, Frontier Psychiatrist, would be the next one that I'd choose for a newer samples rendition or video, though I wouldn't really entertain the idea much more from there for the next couple of months. However, after the original face-to-face video blew up and everyone started seeing it, I realized a follow-up needed to happen, and the sooner the better. I was eventually going to make another one either way, like even if it didn't get huge. I already picked my song choice for a second installment, but the bigger the first video got, the more I thought that I had to like strike while the iron was hot. I knew this was inevitably going to be much harder than the face-to-face video. For perspective, there are individual songs on the Since I Left You album, where Frontier Psychiatrist is from, that have more samples than the entirety of Discovery combined. Face-to-face uses about 20 samples, and I think the rest of Discovery, excluding Face-to-Face, probably has like, I don't know, maybe around 10 to 12, probably like 10 or so samples. There are songs on Since I Left You that alone sample upwards of 20, 30, possibly more things. There's still a few samples off that record that haven't been found yet, so the number is probably even higher. But either way, in June to July of 2024, that's when I really started to get the ball rolling with this project. I started coming up with like tons of ideas for potential replacements for each of the samples. I was writing them all down, the ones I thought were the best. though I'm mainly focused on getting through the instrumental aspect, like here. I'm going to collapse it so you can see better. I'm mainly focused on getting through the instrumental aspects of the song first, and then focus more on the lyrics and dialogue afterward, which I figured would be much harder to complete by comparison. I started by going through each of the most notable samples and components of the track. Let me see if I can find it here. The My Way of Life choir, which I replaced with, as you'll see here, Feist 1, 2, 3, 4, and the accompanying horns from the sample, the ba-ba-da, which I replaced with, I replaced with Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us. And it's because of this sample in particular that, in retrospect, I think it was good that I didn't get started on this immediately after the face-to-face video, considering that by the time I had started this project, Not Like Us was only like a couple months old at that time, so yeah. Although, with how long this took me, I probably would have stumbled upon it as a potential sample idea either way, even if I started right after face-to-face. The Wade in the Water drum break, which I replaced with the iconic drum break from Amy Winehouse's You Know I'm No Good, which I'm not hovering over right now, but I'll show it later on. And, of course, the Wayne and Chester Frontier Psychiatrist sample, not the instrumental, but it's not instrumental, but still the most important aspect of the song, where the original song got its name from. It took multiple samples to replace that entirely. These are just a few examples, but I'll go more into detail once I dive into the project itself. Now, the lyrics, those were an ordeal for sure. I was able to knock out a couple of lines as I started getting ideas and I was writing down preliminary notes for this project. That Boy Needs Therapy and Did I Ever Tell You the Story About, in particular, those two lines in particular weren't super hard to get through, but the process became a lot longer as I was beginning to get to the trickier ones. I remember having to turn to the website Filmot a lot of the time, which I'll explain what that is in a moment. And even still, I was looking for and re-editing clips well into the song's production, even when the instrumental was already near complete, and I had already found replacements for most of the lines in the song. But yeah, so I'll demonstrate it here. So this is the Filmot homepage, and basically how this works is that you can type in you can type in any word or phrase that you want, and it'll give you every video on YouTube that contains that word or phrase. So, for instance, if I want to type in no, not just Since I Left You, the title of the album that Frontier Psychiatrist is from, and then press search automatic subtitles. Usually now it requires you to do a CAPTCHA, but it just let me go here, because I had already done it earlier. It'll give you every video that contains that phrase. So if we hover over a couple of ones here.
Changed since I left. You became a whole hero.
Tastes have changed since I left. You.
Okay, that one's not loading.
Since I left you, you haven't.
Dying ever since I left you.
Oh, come back, come back. We got this.
Got the spike.
One enemy remaining.
Where's this last dude?
Good one, but real
Unsighted?
sad.
No.
You haven't peed since I left? You haven't peed since I left?
Oh, this is like a learning English Korean thing. I didn't even realize until I went on it. But yeah, basically, yeah, you can type in a word, you can type in a phrase, and it'll give you every video that says that word or phrase. It's a really useful website. It's really great if you do a lot of sampling, or if you're trying to find vocal or dialogue samples. It's very similar to the another website you might have heard, Playphrase, where it essentially does the same thing, but it gives you movie clips. Except this one you don't have to pay to view all the results. The only thing you have to do is just to CAPTCHA after the first search. But yeah, really cool website. You should check it out. So I need you to remember, and I need you to understand that everything in the original Frontier Psychiatrist song is sampled, from the instrumental elements to the lyrics, which means I couldn't just get away with using an acapella like I did on the Face to Face remake. Remember, everything that is sampled in the original has to be replaced with a newer sample, and since every element of the original song is a sample, every element of the new song has to be a sample of something else as well. There exists an acapella for Frontier Psychiatrist, but like I said, I couldn't use it because I would go against the rules I've set for myself for this, project, but I guess now series. I also didn't want to take the cheap route of, like, recreating the words verbatim by just stitching together clips of individual words, because not only have lots of people done stuff like that, and I feel like sometimes it isn't really super impressive, not to sound rude or anything. I mean, it is impressive, but, like, it's not impressive in the way that, like, an Avalanches track is impressive when they put dialogue together. Not only that, like, and it would sound really janky if I did that, like having a bunch of different words like come together like that. And also, in addition to that, it doesn't really fit the ethos of the Avalanches music either. And before you say, yes, I know in a literal sense that stitching together samples is their thing, I'm more referring to how they do it when I say it doesn't fit into their ethos. Like, they put samples together in, like, such a way that it feels so natural. It feels like they're so good at bringing disparate worlds and music and people together and making it their thing. Like, keep the spirit of the original song. So instead, I opted for taking each line or sentence in the song and replacing it with similar phrases and sentences from throughout pop culture in an attempt to kind of like rebuild the same general story and like idea for the track, or of the track. Like, for instance, replacing "That Boy Needs Therapy" with Hank Hill saying "That boy ain't right," or "Crazy in the Coconut" with "Insane in the Membrane." So after I had gathered enough ideas and took enough notes, I officially got started with this project on July 26th, 2024, which is a pretty significant day to me because it was the day of the opening ceremony of the Olympics. It was the day that Smile by Porter Robinson came out, and that's still my favorite album of his. And it was also the day that I went in early in the morning for a liver biopsy, which thankfully went very well. I even remember I went home the same day, but I remember like after I got home, like almost immediately getting started on this. Of course, I was like resting, but like in my bed, but like with my computer and all the samples downloaded off SoulSeek and everything. So same with the order of ideas. In the same order that I wrote them in, I began by recreating the instrumental of the song first. We have a lot of instrumental stuff here, and then focusing more on the vocals afterward once the instrumental was mostly done. If I remember correctly, production order kind of went like this. We had the first instrumental section, the middle and outro instrumental sections, the first verse. It was easy, and then I copy and pasted the first verse. The intro over here, the middle verse, and then the outro verse simultaneously. And yeah, that's pretty much the order in which I got this done. And there are plenty instances in this project where I have multiple samples filling in for one singular sample. Like, for instance, the 1, 2, 3, 4 and the Not Like Us samples I mentioned earlier both act as a replacement for the My Way of Life sample, the trumpet, the main melodic sample from the original Frontier Psychiatrist. Some samples I didn't necessarily need to add, but I still did, either for like flavor or variety, or to like add little Easter eggs, and I'll get to those too. This song was way more time consuming to complete than Face to Face, and in no small part due to the vocals. In total, from the time I'd started in late July, it took me around 8 months to complete this project. For reference, it took me like 2 to 3 weeks to complete the music for Face to Face with Newer Samples. I didn't work on the video until like a year later, so that technically had been finished since 2023, but then I didn't make the visuals for that until 2024. But I digress. When it came to this, it took me a while, and also in between this, I was working on other things. I was working on Mosaica, the breakdown of the first Newer Samples video, a whole mixtape, so on and so forth. And finally, I finished this in late March of 2025. I think like March 28th. I was the final export date for the audio. Originally, I wanted to have this out on Halloween because I feel like it would be a pretty fitting song for Halloween, Halloween 2024, that is. But that turned out not to be feasible, and to be honest, if I had focused solely on this project from the start and nothing else, I might have been able to finish before the end of 2024, but I didn't want to risk any sort of burnout or anything. Then the video afterward took like 1 to 2 weeks, so combine all that time, and I was finally finished in like early mid-April, and then I put the video itself up on April 14th. One more thing before we begin here. Like the first Newer Samples video, the range of samples I shifted forward for this project by 30 years as well. So the original Frontier Psychiatrist sampled songs released between 1953 and 1995, which meant that my range was 1983 to 2025. Right last year when this was released. Though in actuality, the oldest sample I used for this is from 1989, and the newest being 2024, which is fair since most of this was completed in 2024 and early 2025. It's not cheating as long as I stay within the range. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through each section of the song. I'm going to do the intro, the first verse, the middle verse, the outro verse, just like in, sequential order, and explain each sample. And then within each section, I'm going to go through the instrumental aspects first, and then once I have that out of the way, I'm going to break down the lyrics and the vocals that I used from beginning to end. There is a ton of stuff to get through, so let's get started. This is a breakdown of Frontier Psychiatrist with Newer Samples. Alright, so the first sample I want to talk about here is Orchestral Intro by Gorillaz, which I used in place of the horn and string opening sampled from the Lawrence of Arabia theme by Geoff Love and his orchestra. The idea to use this sample came after I had gotten the idea to use the title track off of Plastic Beach, the album where both this track and that one are from, and I felt like this one in particular, Orchestral Intro, kind of had a similar vibe to the opening sample in Frontier Psychiatrist, the Geoff Love sample, so I decided to go with it. So this is how it sounds normally. Yeah, I don't want to play too much because I don't want this video to get claimed. There's a very high probability that this video will have some sort of copyright claim, but I hope that doesn't happen. But either way, I pitched it up 2 semitones and 20 cents, and I also added some compression, some reverb, and a little bit of sidechain for when the drums come in down here. And yeah, this is what it sounds like on its own. And I also used it later on to accompany the the other instrumental samples I used in during the second verse, but I'll get more into it once I get to that verse. Alright, so next, as a replacement for the opening polyester dialogue, or the dialogue sample from the Polyester movie, I chose this line from the Simpsons episode Stark Raving Dad, because I felt like both that and that scene from Polyester had like similar themes of being accused of insanity. So while I was thinking for a replacement for Frontier Psychiatrist's intro dialogue. I thought of this episode because of, like I mentioned, the parallels between the two. Then I actually went in and, looked for some lines in the episode. I put this one in, and it turns out it fit like a glove. So I'm just gonna put the window up here. It's this scene from the episode.
The devil with his fly open.
Right.
That's a spill on the floor with bugs going after it. They're gonna eat it.
Good.
Let's see, it's... The boys! This isn't fair! How can you tell who's sane and who's insane?
Well, we have a very simple method. Whoever has that stamp on his hand is insane.
Okay, so yeah, it's that scene, and it's mostly unedited apart from some reverb, and then of course there's the delay when the guy says insane to mimic the insane in the original track. But yeah, that's where I got that's what I did for the intro dialogue. And then of course we have what is essentially the backbone of the whole thing, the main drum break sample, which is taken from Amy Winehouse's "You Know I'm No Good." This is a replacement for the Harvey Mandel "Wade in the Water" drum break, which is sampled in the original. So I was thinking of drum breaks that sounded like that one, and this was one of the first ones that came to mind. I thought it was very distinct, like the one in Frontier Psychiatrist, so I decided to use it, and I'm going to show you how I chopped it here. So I'm gonna take a little bit here. So first, what I did was I pitched it down. Well, no, I synced it to the tempo, but with the repitch mode so that it wouldn't sound warped when I slowed it down. This is what it sounds like. Well, I'd have to turn off warp. This is what it sounds like normally. I'm not gonna play too much, so this doesn't get claimed or anything. I already said that, but so I synced it to the tempo, and noticeably it's a little bit slower. And then I I chopped it up like this. So we the first two beats are this, and then I took these two kicks, copy pasted them there, and then this snare, and then I took this. I'm gonna have to move this over a little bit to show you. And then I took this this little hi-hat, and yeah, that's the first part of the loop. And then the second part of the loop is the same, except there's an extra kick drum at the end, and I'll show you where I got the kick drum exactly in the loop. So this part here, with these two kick drums, it's this one. And then here's the full loop. And there we go, that's our loop. And this plays, I'm gonna kind of backspace all this so we kind of return it to normal here. This plays for a little bit in the intro. It plays throughout the choruses, the first verse, the parrot section towards the end. It pretty much plays throughout the entire track. Save for a couple parts. But yeah, that's how I chopped this drum break. Alright, so going into the first section, I'm gonna start here with one of the more obvious samples of the whole project. It's the one that kicks everything off for the song for the the big part of the song. It's this horse neigh sampled from "Insane in the Brain," which is used as a replacement for the horse neigh in the original Frontier Psychiatrist. So here's how it sounds with everything else. And then here it is on its own again. So I picked this one because, I mean, the choice was kind of clear. I mean, what's the first song you think of when you think of a horse neighing? Apart from maybe Jump Around, but that's not really a horse sample. That's like a trumpet sample. I should also add that Insane in the Brain and Frontier Psychiatrist are already pretty similar songs thematically speaking, so that made this an even better choice. But yeah, I picked this one, and yeah, it's the horse neigh from the opening of the track. And I just took it, I added a little bit of delay and a little bit of OTT, some compression, and yeah, it plays throughout the track in every spot where the horse neigh plays in the original. And I also did sample some lyrics from Insane in the Brain as well, particularly the "Insane in the Membrane," because I thought it fit for a lyrical section that I'll get into later as we get deeper into this project file. Next up we have these two crash sounds, which are taken from Army of Me by Björk, and I used this as a replacement for the in the original Frontier Psychiatrist. There's like an audible gunshot sound right as like the beat drops, and it taken from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I decided to use this as a replacement for that. So I took the sound effects from the intro of Army of Me. There's like two like crash sounds. There's like a rising sound and then a crash sound. Here, I'll play them. Well, actually, this one's a little bit slowed down. This is what it sounds like normally. So yeah, and then. So yeah, I took those two sounds and I kind of merged them together. The crash sound, I pitched it down 3 semitones, and then I chopped it up just so that it was just the crash with a little bit of a fade at the end. And then I layered on top of it that little rising sound that plays right before the. This one I didn't repitch. I just added a bit of fade in and fade out to kind of, extend the explosion sound here, the crash sound here, and then together they sound like this. And other than that, I just I added to each of them some delay, some a little bit of reverb, some EQ, and then to both of them a little bit of gain. But yeah, that's where that crash sound is from. Oh, this is actually well into the song, but yeah. I meant to show it here. I meant to show this crash. Same general concept though. Alright, and now we're going to get into the samples I used to recreate the My Way of Life choir, which there are a few. 3 of them start at the same time, so I'm going to knock them all out here. And it should be noted that each of them use like some amount of EQ, some amount of like compression, like OTT, some amount of reverb, but I'm not going to go into huge detail over every, effect unless it's very integral to how the sample sounds in the final mix. So I'm going to start here with this sample taken from Feist's 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the one I used to create the actual choir part of the sample. So I was thinking, back when I was thinking of ideas for this project, I was trying to think of a song, like another song that had like a distinct, like whoa choir, like the one in Frontier Psychiatrist, and this song was one of the first ones that came to mind, so I decided to go with it. So I'm gonna show you how I chopped it here. So basically, let me kind of. So this is the original sample. So I took it's during the chorus. It's the second whoa after the first one. So I took this sample of the singer's going whoa. I pitched it down 2 semitones. I took just the first 2 beats, just the whoa without the oh, and then what I did was essentially I took it and then I copy pasted it and reversed it. I'm manually reversing it, but yeah, I'm just demonstrating here. Initially, when I was initially chopping it, I actually did stretch it out a little bit so that like the transient would be past like the beat mark. So it technically I didn't just reverse it, but I also like stretched this part a little bit out so that it would sound like the note was being maintained for a little longer. So yeah, that's the first part of the loop, and then the second part of the loop is similar, but it's pitched down. It's pitched down another semitone, and unlike the first one, unlike the first iteration, unlike the first chop here, I took this one and I once again, like this one, I stretched out the transient. I stretched out like the first drum hit to be like before when the sample starts, so it would sound like I said before, they were maintaining the note for longer. And then I took that and I reversed it, and then this is the full loop. And I also added some stereo width reduction because I wanted it to sound more like uniform. Like I didn't want the choir to be off to one ear or one side. So, and I didn't want the sample to be entirely in mono either. So yeah, that's how I did this loop. And here is how it sounds with everything else. I will also say, though, admittedly, the first chord of this loop isn't an exact match for the first chord of the My Way of Life sample, but I still managed to make it work, mostly because like the bass lines of the other samples that I used here helped to kind of build the melody and support this sample. Next we have these chops taken from the title track off of Gorillaz' Plastic Beach, which I used to recreate the bass line of Frontier Psychiatrist. Like I said before, like I mentioned earlier, this was the first idea I got for the entire project. What I did here was pretty simple. Let me just show you here quickly. So this is the intro of the Plastic Beach track. Alright, so yeah, what I did was I took these 2 beats here, and then I took another portion with some like guitar plucking, this guitar plucking over here, and then I put that right after to kind of give that a little bit of variety here. And then I took this part over here, which is the other chord. I should mention that the bass line follows a pattern of E and then F sharp. So doom, 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 doom. So yeah, I took this, looped it, have it loop twice, and then this is the bass line pattern. Oh, well, actually, this second chop, I did stretch it a little bit because of this little part at the end, but the chops are essentially the same. Yeah. Alright. And right under that, we have here some more samples that I layered on top to kind of, you know, make the bass sound a bit fuller. And what I did here was I took 2 samples from that same intro portion of the Plastic Beach track. Let me kind of raise them here to show you. In fact, this is actually the same as this first sample here. But what I did was I pitched it down 5 semitones with the Pro algorithm so that the format would stay the same, and I layered it under the part of the bass line that's in F sharp, not in the other one because I felt like that part already had enough in it. I specifically layered it with this part, so this is what that sounds like pitched down. And then of course I lowered the volume, and well, more than that, but you get the idea. And then I layered it with these chops. And then all together, that sounds like this. You can probably pick up on the bass line, I'm assuming. And then with everything else. And then I brought back Plastic Beach later on for the Frontier Psychiatrist breakdown in like the middle of the track after the second verse. Yeah, I brought it back here. The pattern is kind of similar. I mean, it uses the same chops, but it's a little different. I'll get into it when we get there. And then combined with those 2 samples, we have these chops taken from I Am Who I Am by the Books. I didn't necessarily need to add this, considering that recreating the My Way of Life sample mostly consisted of, you know, finding a sample for the bass, and then also doing the choir and the horns. But I added it anyway, mainly because I thought that my recreation of that sample sounded kind of empty, and, you know, just needed something else. So I chose this sample to kind of help with that. The thing I sampled in particular were these horns from the beginning of the song. And the chops are relatively simple. I'll just show you here. This is the sample unaltered. I sampled these horns, like I said, and what I did was I took these first 2 beats. Alright, so this first chop is at its normal pitch, and this one was pitched up 2 semitones. And then I looped that. And then I took the second part of that horn intro. This. And did something pretty similar. This chop, which is pitched up 1 semitone, and this chop, which is pitched up, I think 2 semitones? Yeah. And yeah, that's how I made that loop. I did alter the timing a little bit, but the general idea is, you know, the same. And then here are the horn samples with everything else. I should also add that the books, if you're interested in the Avalanches, you should check out the music of the books. They're like a folktronica, like Plunderphonics. They were a folktronica Plunderphonics band in like the same vein. If you enjoy like Since I Left You or anything like Avalanches or Plunderphonics related, I think you are really gonna like this band too. Okay, and now for a sample that a lot of people seem to love. These horns taken from Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, which I used to recreate the horns in the My Way of Life sample. I've said My Way of Life like 10 times already. But yeah, when I was trying to think of a replacement for the horns in the My Way of Life sample in Frontier Psychiatrist, it's a very distinct part of the track, probably one of the most iconic aspects of it. I was trying to go for something that, you know, sounded almost like that very distinctive bum ba da lead, and Not Like Us almost immediately came to mind because of the now iconic bum bum ba dum riff or little horn motif, which itself was sampled from Monk Higgins' "I Believe to My Soul," and I'm gonna show you what I did here. So we have the original song, which I don't want to play too much of. This is like the third time I've said this, but like I don't want to claim on this video. I'm sorry. Well, this version's pitched down. Let me show you the correctly pitched one. So in Not Like Us, in the Monk Higgins sample, there are two iterations of that distinct horn melody. One that plays, and then another one that plays after. They each sound a little bit different from one another. Notice how they sound slightly different from one another? I used one and then the other to recreate this. So what I did was I took the latter three notes of the melody, and then I took the first one, just the first one, and then I stretched out the other two to be twice their length. Okay, for the record, this is what the portion that I was trying to take is supposed to sound like. I chopped it incorrectly in my demonstration. I'm adding this after the fact. This is the first note, and then these are the other two notes. So I took the first note, and then I stretched out the other two to be twice their length. Well, there, like that. And then, yeah, that's, I felt like this was kind of easy to do because, you know, they both share the same notes. This horn melody and the Frontier Psychiatrist horn melody are almost similar. So, yeah. I actually stretched it a little bit. I adjusted it. Just to kind of get rid of the snaps so that they wouldn't like show up in the final mix, like they wouldn't bleed through and like clash with the drums or anything. And I layered it with the same chops but pitched down an octave. because in Frontier Psychiatrist, the My Way of Life horns are actually at this pitch, as opposed to being at this pitch. But I put them both together because it made it sound fuller. And it definitely made it sound more dramatic. I wanted like the higher pitched like transients of this one combined with, you know, the lower horns. And then this is what that sounds like. I'm gonna backspace here so I can kind of revert this. But yeah. So, like, to recap, I took the bum bum ba-dum, I took the last three notes, just the bum ba-dum, and then I stretched out the latter two notes of that chop to get bum ba-dum. And then during the verses of the song, or the verses that use the verses that have like the main instrumental backing them, I also used the same chop but pitched down another octave, so like 2 octaves, to kind of mimic how the horns in the My Way of Life sample get lower during the verses of Frontier Psychiatrist. They go from ba-ba-da to bum-ba-da. And then here it is with everything else.
That boy ain't right. Psychosomatic. That boy ain't right. Is a psychosomatic. That boy ain't right.
Right there on that couch.
What does that mean?
So yeah, that's what I did for that.
That boy ain't right.
I am gonna kill you.
That boy ain't right.
Okay, so 2 more instrumental samples before we get to the first verse, like the first lyrical section of the song. And the first one I want to talk about here is these like kind of twinkling like xylophone chops taken from Hot Chips Over and Over, which I didn't necessarily like the I Am Who I Am sample. I didn't necessarily need to add this, but I still did, because I wanted to give the whole thing a little more depth and variety, and also because I wanted to like sprinkle in like a few Easter eggs throughout this project, like nods to songs that I like. So here's one of them. This is what the chop sounds like on its own. Alright, and this is relatively simple. So this is what it sounds like at its normal pitch. So what I did was I pitched it up 3 semitones and 10 cents, and then I chopped it like this. I took this first bar, or these first 2 beats, and then I took this part, and then I repeated it, but not quite exactly. Then the third chop is lowered 1 semitone and extended for another beat. And then the last one is shortened because I extended this one. And this is the full loop. And that's what I did for this. Go with everything else.
That boy ain't right.
Cause you're white as a ghost.
And then right next to it, if I can scroll to it, right next to it is a drum break taken from Daft Punk's Da Funk. This one's a bit of a meta sample, considering that Da Funk is actually sampled on another song off of the Since I Left You album, Electricity, to be specific. So there's like a little drum break that kind of separates the verses and the choruses in the original Frontier Psychiatrist. If I'm checking my notes here, it's taken from Dexter Wansel's Theme of the Planets, which is, an iconic drum break in and of itself. I should also add that the usage of the Theme from the Planets break in Frontier Psychiatrist has always reminded me of the break in Defunct, so the choice of sample here was pretty clear to me from the get-go. So I took the drum break from Defunct that plays in between, like, the first couple of like instrumental sections, the that drum break, which technically speaking is sampled from Barry White's "I'm Gonna Love You Just a Little More, Baby," and that song is from 1973. So technically speaking, this could be considered cheating, but personally, I'll say no, that this does not count as cheating, because the specific iteration of the Barry White drum break that I sampled comes from a song within my time range, as opposed to me sampling it from the original song. And I think the version that Daft Punk themselves sampled for Defunct isn't taken directly from the song either. It's like a second-hand version of the break from like a sample pack. In fact, that same sample pack is where a lot of the sounds in Defunct came from, but I digress. So I just took the drum break and I chopped it to have it mimic the rhythm of the Theme from the Planets break sampled in Frontier Psychiatrist. Your little, like, stuttery chops. This one's stretched out a little. And yeah, this break plays. It plays in a few moments throughout the track, but most notably here.
Here we go. This chick is toast.
And that's pretty much the entire first instrumental section down, which means it's time for the lyrics.
That boy ain't right.
Alright, so the first vocal sample I'm going to talk about here, and seemingly a favorite among many people who watch the video, is Hank Hill's "That Boy Ain't Right."
That boy ain't right.
Which is one of the many samples I used to recreate the Wayne and Shuster Frontier Psychiatrist comedy sketch samples in the song. It's where the song gets its name, after all. This one in particular I used to recreate one of the song's most iconic lines, "That boy needs therapy." This instance of Hank's catchphrase,
"That boy ain't right,"
comes from the very first episode of the show. In fact, it comes right after the "I like this new generation of music" scene. And I picked this mainly because I felt like it almost perfectly mirrors the line of "That boy needs therapy" thematically, and also, in a almost a literal sense, because they both start with "that boy." So yeah, I took that line. I took the "that boy ain't right" line.
"That boy ain't right."
I chopped it a little bit so that it was synced to the beat. It appears in every place where the "that boy needs therapy" line appears in the original. All the same places as that one. And another thing I want to mention is the record scratching.
That
Oh, well.
That boy ain't right.
The record scratching, what I used to do that, I didn't manually or physically do this. I didn't press it onto vinyl or anything. No, what I did was I used the plugin Time Shaper by Cable Guys, and I switched the capture mode to show the window here. Basically, what this plugin allows me to do is I can take a sample and then I manipulate these little cues and points on the line, and it allows me to manipulate the speed and pitch of the sample and kind of emulate the sound that you get when you scratch a record. It's entirely digital, but it's very useful for recreating that like that record scratch sound. I used this for all the record scratching in the project, except for a few instances where I just used Ableton's pitch transposition tool instead, where I automated like the transposition, like the pitch of the sample, as opposed to warping it with the plugin. But yeah, that's how I did all that record scratching. I'll go into the other examples of it too, like the further into this video we get. Next we have this psychosomatic.
Psychosomatic.
Which I used to replace, well, obviously, psychosomatic from the original song. This is taken from a Moist Critical stream where Charlie was reacting to a news story about a Ouija board hospitalizing 28 girls. I don't know. This is one of many samples that I didn't really find organically, and that I instead found through Filmot. There weren't a lot of things I could think of off the top of my head that featured somebody saying the word psychosomatic, and I found this Moist Critical video while I was browsing the Filmot site, and felt like it would be a good replacement for that part of the dialogue in the original Frontier Psychiatrist. Yeah, I just took the moment where he said psychosomatic. This part here isn't a record scratch. This is one of the ones where, as I said a little earlier, I used like pitch automation as opposed to just using the time shaper tool. But yeah, I took the part where he says psychosomatic.
Psychosomatic.
There's a little bit of a pitch dip at the end too.
Psychosomatic. Psychosomatic response. So in your head.
Yeah, and then in the original song, the psychosomatic voice line repeats, but extended a little bit, where the second time he says, purely psychosomatic. And to emulate that, I added a little bit of dialogue that came before Charlie said psychosomatic in this video.
Is a psychosomatic.
Specifically him saying is-a.
Is a psychosomatic.
So together, these two instances sound like this.
Psychosomatic. Is a psychosomatic.
And yeah, that's the psychosomatic sample. And I was initially thinking of replacing the word psychosomatic altogether with maybe something like it's all in your head, but I felt like that wouldn't flow nearly as well, and that would also kind of be like boring and predictable. Next after that, we have the sample I used to replace the lie down on the couch line, which in my remake is taken from, of all things, a Fred video. Yes, I'm not kidding. Like we really bringing back OG. We're bringing back OG YouTube with this one. But yeah, it's from the video Fred Sees a Therapist, which ironically very fitting for a remake of this song in particular. But in the video, Fred has a new therapist, and in this one part of the video, he's asked to lie down on the couch by his new therapist, who is voiced by Lucas Cruikshank, as is the case with all of his characters in his old videos.
Fred, you can just lay down right there on that couch. You can just lay down right there on that couch, wherever you feel comfortable, and just...
So yeah, I took the...
there on that couch.
But... Let me give a little bit of context first. So I was trying to think of a good replacement for lie down on the couch, and I thought it would be pretty easy to replace since that's not a particularly uncommon thing to say. And then for some reason, this Fred video was one of the first things that came to mind because I distinctly remember he's asked to lie down on a couch in that video. So then I searched up that video to see if what is said in that part of it would fit for this project, and lo and behold, it somehow does.
Right there on that couch.
So...
You can just lay down right there on that couch, wherever you feel comfortable.
So I just took, this, cut off the ends of it, and it's mostly unaltered, except for a little bit of stretching, so that I could make the words flow a little better.
Right there on that couch.
Without it, well, actually, I could just turn off warp. Without it, it sounds like this.
Right there on that couch. Right there on that couch.
And then with it, sounds...
right there on that couch.
Sounds a little bit different. Couch is... You can notice the couch is drawn out a little more. But yeah, that's what I used for lie down on the couch. It's although here specifically, it's right there on that couch.
Right there on that couch.
Yeah, that's the replacement for that line. Alright, and then next after that we have the sample I used to replace the "What does that mean?" Which is taken from, in my project, it's taken from the Seinfeld episode, The Secretary. So then in this scene, Elaine is trying on a dress, but then she notices, like, she thinks all the mirrors are making her look skinnier, so she's trying to look for, like, an unbiased mirror. But in this one part of the scene, she happens to say, "What does that mean?"
What does that mean?
Oh yeah, and for the record, here's how it sounds unchopped.
What does that mean?
So I used that, and I separated the "what is that" and "mean" so that it would flow a little better. To be fair, I could have just used any particular "what does that mean." It's a very common phrase, but I decided to go with this one because it's another one that I found through another one of those caption searching sites. This time I'm not sure if it was Filmot or Yarn. Actually, it might have been Filmot. I think it was Filmot. Yeah, I used it because I felt like the way, like, Elaine's voice, like her inflection in this scene when she says that would make it perfect as a replacement. So yeah, that's what I used.
What does that mean?
Also, don't take this as like an endorsement of Jerry Seinfeld. He's a Zionist weirdo, even if his show is a classic. And after that, humorously enough, we have this sample taken from, of all things, Dax's Joker. You're insane! Which I used as a replacement for the "You're a nut" line in the original. This one took a little bit of like sample chopping and manipulation to get it to sound how it sounds in the final project. This is what I did. So, in the original, this is an a cappella of the Joker song. But in the original song, Dax famously says, "You're insane, you're in pain." You're insane, you're in pain! I can tell by what you're... Tell by what you're saying. By what you're saying! And, I'm not gonna play it again. You're insane, you're in pain! I can tell by what you're saying! So what I did was, despite the fact that he already does say "you're insane" in this a cappella, what I chose to do instead was I took two different parts of this a cappella. First, this portion. I took just the "urins" part without the "ain," and then I spliced it together with the "ain" from pain. Pain. So just pain without the P. Pain. I spliced those two together. Well, that's a little bit janky, but... I spliced these two clips together. It's a little rough, my demonstration here, but the idea is still the same. I spliced them together mainly because I was trying to fundamentally change Dax's inflection when he says the word "insane" as a way of getting it to match the inflection of the "you're a nut" line as closely as possible. I wanted to make it sound like he was saying "insane" as opposed to "insane." Like, just make his voice sound more dramatic is what I'm getting at here. I'm gonna go backspace so I can restore it. And I layered I have two tracks with the sample layered on top of one another. This one is just the sample on its own, and then the one below is it actually has some delay and some very small room size reverb, because I was trying to mimic the delay effect on the "you're a nut" line, because, you know, the way it echoes "you're a nut, you're a nut." I was trying to mimic that. Also not to mention that the delay on this second track, the wet's turned up all the way because I didn't want the sample to play twice or be twice as loud. So this track sounds like, without the top one, sounds like this. You're insane! Because this is just like the delay effect, and then together they sound like this. You're insane! You're insane! And then right after the Dax sample, we have another sample from Cypress Hill's "Insane in the Brain." As I mentioned earlier, I sampled the horse neigh from that track, but I also sampled this line too. You know, insane in the membrane from the chorus of the song. It's actually the second instance of it in the chorus. That's the first one, and then this is the one I sampled. So yeah, I sampled it, and I chose this as the companion line to the DAC sample for a number of reasons. One, like I mentioned, I had already used Insane in the Brain for the horse neigh, so I figured why not try and get more mileage out of the sample. Two, insane rhymes with membrane, not just in this line, but Dax saying insane rhymes with membrane, much like how nut and coconut rhyme in the original. And I realized that I could make it so that these two samples are doing like a call and response type thing, where Dax is saying "you're insane," and then this other sample reaffirms that by saying "insane in the membrane." And three, the insane in the membrane line flows in a very similar way to "you're crazy in the coconut." Next up we have this sample here taken from the song A Cold Freezing Night by the aforementioned band The Books, which I used as a replacement for the "I'm gonna kill you" line.
I am gonna kill you.
I got the idea to sample this song before I got the idea to sample the other one, I Am Who I Am, for the horns. When I was thinking of a replacement for the "I'm gonna kill you" line, this song came to mind because I remembered how it distinctly features like a lot of vocal samples of like a bunch of kids threatening to kill each other. Don't worry, the song itself is really good, I promise. And I realized that song features the line "I'm gonna kill you" as well. So I decided to use it. I ran the song through a vocal like stem separator, or the sections that I was planning on using, the sections that I was gonna choose between.
I am gonna kill you.
I ran it through that, and here it's mostly unaltered, aside from some EQ, of course, and it's also pitched down one semitone to, you know, kind of slow it a little bit and make it flow with the beat a little better. I should make it clear that in the original Frontier Psychiatrist, the line is "I'm gonna kill you," specifically with the contraction of I and am. And in the song A Cold Freezing Night, there are two distinct samples of a kid saying "I'm gonna kill you" and "I am gonna kill you." But for this, I chose the one where he says "I am gonna kill you" because I felt like it flowed a little better than simply the "I'm gonna kill you." And I think using this line as opposed to the "I'm gonna kill you" line kind of helps to like emphasize the fact that this is supposed to be like a new iteration, like a whole new like rendition of this same song. Alright, next are the samples I used to recreate the Randy Gazoo "Let's Have a Tune" line. For the record, the full line is Randy Gazoo "Let's Have a Tune now when I count 3, but I'm splitting it into two sections here because I used two different sources to recreate that line. The first one of which being Smosh's Food Battle 2011, and I think you can see by now the old internet influences were really strong in this project. But anyway, when I first heard Frontier Psychiatrist, I thought in that line they were saying "let's have a 2," like the number 2, or like "let's have a duel." And even though I know now the line is "let's have a tune," it still kind of sounds like duel and 2 to me. It sounds like both. So I decided for this, why not use a sample of someone saying "let's have a duel?" And one of the first instances of that which came to my mind was this Smosh video. And for the "let's have a duel" line, I sampled the part where Ian says, "let's do a gun," and then Anthony says, "fine, let's have a duel."
Let's do a gun.
Fine, let's have a duel. Let's have a duel.
Oh wait, nope, not yet, Robbie.
Gun.
Fine, let's have a duel.
Yeah, so I sampled that part, it's towards the end. And then for the Randy Gazoo part, I sampled Ian, I sampled a different part of the video where Ian says "let's do," and I also, I'll show the full sample here.
Let's do. Let's do deodorant.
So yeah, I sampled that. and I did a little bit of record scratching here.
Let's do.
Or actually, it might have been, it might have just been pitch automation. Let me see. Well, the window is not like opening or anything. Oh wait, envelopes. Yeah, it was pitch modulation. But yeah, that's what I did for this line. And I also used another sample from the same video of Anthony saying and another one of Ian saying now for some small sections later on in the second verse, and I'll get to those too when we get to that verse. And then to recreate the "Now When I Count 3" portion of the Randy Gazoo line, I used a sample from the song "We Are Number One" from the show Lazy Town. Yeah, might as well call this cover Meme Psychiatrist, I guess. Anyway, this sample is taken from the song's official acapella, which there is one, and I sampled the part where Robbie, or Stefan, is saying... It's during the look at this net section where he says, "When I say go, be ready to throw." I sampled the "when I say go" part.
Look at this net that I just found. When I say go, be ready to throw.
So yeah, I sampled the "when I say go" part.
When I say go.
And if I remember correctly, I might have gotten the idea of sampling this song around the same time as the Smosh one. Kind of makes sense considering that these two samples make up a recreation of one line from the original song. And finally, here's the last two samples of the first verse. The first one I'm going to talk about here is this one taken from the Family Guy episode, what's the title? The Tan Aquatic with Steve Zissou. I'm kind of reading from my notes here. Which is used in place of the Aunt Teresa sample from her story, The Leopard. In other words, the line, "He was white as a sheet." Now... there is a lot of media, and there are a lot of things where the phrase "white as a sheet" is said, but I decided not to go with that exact phrase, mainly because a lot of what I found, like on Filmot, when I searched up that phrase, I felt like it wouldn't flow all that well with the rest of the lyrics and the rest of the stuff I had already sampled. So I decided to go with like an alternate version of the same simile, like white as a... insert something that's very white. All of a sudden, I remembered this one scene from this Family Guy episode where Stewie is about to get a tan using a tanning booth in his room, and when Brian questions him about it, he tells him he wouldn't understand because he's white as a ghost. And I'll play the unedited audio here.
It's a lifestyle, Brian. So you wouldn't know that because you're white as a ghost.
So yeah, I sampled that. I went with it, and it just so happened to fit like a glove. I sampled him saying, obviously, "'Cause you're white as a ghost."
Because you're white as a ghost.
And then I chopped it up a little bit, and I did a bit of like that record scratching with Time Shaper again.
Because you're white as a ghost.
Initially, I was just going to use pitch automation, but when I tried to do that, it didn't sound all that great. It sounded very like fake. Like it didn't sound very like convincing. So I attempted to go back and do it with Time Shaper, and it ended up sounding really good.
Because you're white as a ghost.
For the record, what I do is I take the sample that I want to use, I put it into Time Shaper, and then most of the time what I do is after I've adjusted everything I want to adjust with the Time Shaper plugin, I bounce the audio, and then I kind of use what I got and chop it up. This is the scratched audio without any chops. So yeah, that's kind of my process. That was kind of my process for the record scratches here.
Because you're white as a ghost.
I felt like this sample was appropriate anyway, considering the other Family Guy samples I used at the back end of the project, and now that I think about it, it could not be more appropriate considering that in the original Frontier Psychiatrist, the "white as a sheet" line, and then all the samples with the parrot and the "can you think of anything that talks?" those all come from the same record, Aunt Teresa's "Please Tell Me a Story."
They may try to follow you home.
And in my version, all of the corresponding samples come from different Family Guy episodes, which, granted, did get a few people saying that I use too much Family Guy. I'll get into that a little. I'll get into that once we get to like the back end of the project. But yeah, I feel like this was a really appropriate choice. Okay, now for the last sample in the first verse. It's this clip from the Angry Video Game Nerd episode on the NES Ghostbusters game. It's actually the first in a trilogy of episodes. But basically, this sample replaces the "and he also made false teeth" line, which in the original Frontier Psychiatrist was sampled from side 2 of the Grey Line Sound Tour of Historic Boston. So, to explain, in the aforementioned Family Guy clip, Stewie says "ghost." So I needed something that rhymed with ghost as opposed to sheep. So I figured there are a few things that rhyme with ghost. How about I do toast, because that's ghost and toast. I could do something like your toast. So I went to Philmont to search for something along those lines, and I stumbled upon this old AVGN episode where he says he's trying to fight the final boss in the game, and he goes, "This chick is toast." And I felt like that would be absolutely perfect. It would be a great way to just tie everything up in the first verse. So I decided to go with it. This comes towards the end of the episode. In fact, right before the infamous congratulations scene. But I sampled him him playing like the final boss of the game.
Alright, come on, take it, you fucking bitch. This chick is toast.
I sampled this.
This chick is toast.
I sampled that line, and then I combined it with another sample of him saying, "Okay, here we go," as a way of, like, extending the whole sample.
Oh, I'm gonna get you. Oh, you're gonna get it. Come on, here we go. Oh, there you go.
Alright, I combined those two together, and, yeah, and then I also did a little bit of, like, record scratching to emulate the way that the false teeth line is scratched in the original Frontier Psychiatrist. And all together, it sounds like this.
Come on, here we go. This chick is toast!
And in hindsight, this was also a very fitting sample for many reasons. One, the dialogue sampled right before, the Family Guy dialogue, makes mentions of ghosts, and this sample is literally about Ghostbusters. Second reason being, I actually did sample one of the Ghostbusters movies later on in this song. And the third being that this specific clip,
this chick is toast!
The background music in it, which is like an 8-bit rendition of the Ghostbusters theme, is actually in key with the rest of the song. This was not intentional at all. In fact, I discovered this because somebody in my comments section, Wobbledine4050, pointed this out. In fact, they were the first person to point this out. I think a couple other people did. But regardless, thank you for pointing that out, man. And with that, we have completed the first verse. And let's continue on into the next ones.
The exclusive Diddy parties begin, and business continues.
Okay, but before we get to the second section of the song, I briefly want to talk about this transition here. So, in the original Frontier Psychiatrist, in between the chorus and the second verse, there's like this explosion sound, and then you can hear the dialogue, "Avalanches above, business continues below," sampled from the movie The Conquest of Everest. Obviously, I had to redo that in my own remake, so I used 4 samples to recreate that section, and I'm going to go over them like really quickly because I want to get to the second verse. Alright, so the first 2 samples I used to recreate the explosion sound. The first one is taken from "This Old House Is All I Have" by Against All Logic, and the other one being from the song "Pink Champagne" by the Avalanches themselves. So yeah, I sampled the Avalanches in an Avalanches tribute project. Yeah. So, "This Old House Is All I Have" is, it's like a house song, but at the beginning of it, there's like this very bassy, like explosion-like rumble that happens. So I decided to use that as part of the explosion. I pitched it up 1 semitone because this sound does have a key, so I had to pitch it up to be in key with the rest of this project. And I did some, there's a little high pass, just a little bit. I didn't want to cut out too much of the bass, and some reverb. So but this is how it sounds extended. Like the intro is just kind of that sound repeating, and then it kind of builds up into the instrumental. But for this project, I pitched it up a semitone, and then I chopped it a lot. I chopped it, and I put a bit of added like some fade on both sides, a little fade in, and then a longer fade out. So that's what I did for that. And then pink champagne I used to make the explosion sound like longer, like not fade out so quickly. So this one is so the pink champagne track, for the record, the track itself is like 15 seconds. It's an interlude track off of the Avalanches' third album, We Will Always Love You. And at the beginning of it, there's like some thunder sounds. This is what it sounds like normally.
The sky was pink champagne.
And there's a guy saying the sky was pink champagne. So what I did was I slowed it. I pitched it down 6 semitones to slow it so that I could use a longer portion of the audio without having to leave the voice in. I also did the same thing as the other sample where I cut it short. I added a fade in and a slightly longer fade out. There's also a lot of reverb on this one. And together, these two samples sound like this. And that's how I did that explosion sound. And then for the Avalanches Above, Business Continues Below line, I used a sample from this documentary about like luxury mega yachts owned by the ultra rich. Another one I found through Filmot because I could not for the life of me think of anything off the top of my head that was even remotely similar to Avalanches Above, Business Below. So I typed in Business Continues into Filmot, and this is one of the things I found. So I sampled the part where they say, I'll play the whole clip here. I'll play a longer portion of it.
And when the sun sets over the Monaco Yacht Show, the exclusive boat parties begin and business continues.
So I sampled the part where they say the exclusive boat parties begin and business continues. And I felt like that was a really good replacement. It almost, like, I don't know what it is about it that, like, gives off this, like, something about it gives off the same vibe as the Avalanches Above, Business Below line. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that at the tail end of the sample, there's a bit of delay because I'm emulating how at the end of the Avalanches Above Below sample in the original, there's like a delay that leads into the second verse. However, I cut out the boat parties part of the sample and replaced it with Diddy Party. Yes, I'm very mature. There wasn't really any real reason for me to do this. I just felt like doing it because I thought it would make the track more humorous, and also like the really depraved nature of the parties kind of, in my opinion, fits in with the general idea of a track like Frontier Psychiatrist, though I'm not minimizing or romanticizing anything that happened at the parties. It was all like some terrible shit, and Diddy is an absolute weirdo, not a good one. So what I did here is I took a sample from a speech he gave at Howard University graduates reunion ceremony in like 2014, and of course I sampled the infamous line of "Ain't no party like a Diddy party."
All right now. Ain't no party like a Diddy party.
Well, here it's pitched down a little bit.
Ain't no party like a Diddy party.
So I pitched it down 2 semitones, but changing the speed and pitch, and then I just took the Diddy part, the Diddy party portion of that dialogue, and however, I also had it crossfade into a section of the mega yachts, the mega yachts thing I sampled earlier, because in the mega yachts clip they're saying parties in the plural form, whereas in the Diddy Party clip, Diddy is saying party in its singular form. So I had to kind of blend the two together to make it sound like he was saying parties in the plural form. So I took the Diddy Party clip, and then I had it crossfade into an S sound from the Mega Yachts documentary sample. So this is what the top sounds like on its own.
The exclusive begin, and business continues.
And then this is what the bottom sounds like on its own.
Diddy Party.
And then together they... Well, actually, they're not grouped together here. I'll just group them here to kind of show you. Together they sound like this.
The exclusive
Diddy Party
begin, and business continues.
Yeah, that's that line. Now we can get into the second section of the song. And now we're in the second section of the song, which, based on a lot of comments I received, seemed to be a huge favorite among people who watched the video. But like I did with the first one, I'm gonna go through all the instrumental aspects of it first, and then I'm gonna break down what I did for the lyrics. This little strip being all the vocal samples. So first I'm gonna start with the drums, which are used in place of the... I forgot which sample it is. I'm gonna have to look it up here. So first we have all the drum samples here, which I used to recreate the drums sampled from Christopher Clouds' Zippity Doo Dah. And there's drum samples taken from 3 different songs here, so I'm gonna go through them each in quick succession. So first we have Radiohead's High and Dry. And what I did here is I took the drums from the opening of the song, and I sped them up without changing the pitch. I used the Beats algorithm so that they would sound like snappier, as opposed to like using the complex algorithm. I reduced the stereo width a little bit, and well, on the whole group there's OTT, but I mean that's the whole group. And I chopped them up so that they would match the pattern, like the rhythm of the drums in the second section of Frontier Psychiatrist. So that's the first one. And then the second track here, I took the iconic drums from Massive Attack's Teardrop. And I did quite a lot to it. So I sped it up, I pitched it down a semitone, I chopped it up a lot, as you can see, as opposed to it normally being this. Yeah. And then I put some high pass, a slight bit of low pass, you know, just to get rid of like the very, very high, crackly like frequencies, like the 20 kHz. I used Ableton's drum bus plugin to kind of like reduce the volume of everything around the drum transients, while still keeping like the punch of the transients, because I felt like the high and dry drums already like filled a lot of space in the mix, and I didn't want the teardrop drums to clash with anything. And then I put some relatively heavy compression on the track, and yeah, I think I got the idea to use these two songs around the same time as one another. The idea to do this combo in particular came to me pretty early on in the project's production. But it wasn't until well into the song's production that I decided to also add the drums from Portishead's Sour Times, which themselves are taken from Spin It Jig by Smokey Brooks. Once again, we're kind of going back to the whole, technically it isn't cheating because it's like, even though that is outside of my range, the version of it that I sampled is from a song that's within my range. So I took the drums, towards like the outro of the song, you can hear the drums kind of by themselves. So I took the drums, I chopped them a little bit, I put a little bit of high pass on them, and yeah, that's basically these drums in a nutshell. And, oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that the Radiohead High and Dry drums, I did bring them back for the outro section as part of, like, the recreation of the Ana El Negro Zombon drums. Next here I'm going to talk about the samples I used to recreate the loop taken from La Chaparita by Percy Faith and his orchestra, the melodic component of the second verse of Frontier Psychiatrist. So first I'm going to talk about, I'm going to briefly discuss Orchestral Intro by Gorillaz again, because earlier on I did say that I sampled the song again for this section, just in a different manner to how I did for the intro. So here, what I did was I pitched it down 4 semitones and up 20 cents. This is what it sounds like normally. And then, after pitching it down, and I was careful to choose this chord progression in Orchestral Intro in particular because I was trying to mimic the melodic progression of the La Chaparita sample as closely as possible. So we have the and then I loop it, and then I put a small part of it at the end here to kind of end off the second verse. And then I reprise it a little later on for the transition into the final leg of the song with the parrot samples and everything. There's a little bit of OTT, some reverb, sidechain compression, but yeah, that's this is one of the samples that makes up like the melodic backbone of the second verse. Oh yeah, and with everything else, these samples sound like this.
This is a story all about cowboys, pigeons,
The Indians.
Frontier Psychiatrist.
And then combined with that, we have these samples taken from Andro by One Tricks Point Never. A fun fact, an artist that I also sampled for the face-to-face video. But either way, we have here these... in the intro of Andro, there are like these breathy, voice-like synth pads that go like... And while I was thinking of potential sample replacements for the second verse of Frontier Psychiatrist, I realized that the chord progression of this pad kind of almost matched that of Frontier Psychiatrist's second verse, so I decided to go with it. So this is the sample on its own. So what I did is I took the first 2 chords. I didn't use the others because it didn't really match the melody, or it didn't. I didn't really use any other part of the sample because I didn't feel it was necessary, considering what I was going for here. It's really sped up here for some reason. So I took the first 2 chords, the and the E. And then I looped it, and then I copy-pasted that first chord again for the end of the second verse. And then I layered on top of it the same sample, but a little quieter, and pitched up an entire octave with the Pro algorithm as to maintain the formant of the sample. Notice how it sounds a little weird. So together, these two sound like this. Oh, and that plays, that accompanies the orchestral intro sample. However, I did also add another sample to these two, and that's this short, somewhat faint flute sample from, taken from Beastie Boys' Sure Shot, which I added mainly because I wanted to add like more variety and depth to the whole section, and also because the La Chaparita sample does have flutes in it anyway, so I thought it was pretty fitting. So what I did here, this is how it sounds normally. It's the flute from the intro of the track, and I pitched it down 5 semitones to be in key with everything else. I added some, a lot of high pass. I boosted the highs a little bit. And, yeah, if you heard a little faint flute during this part of the song, this is what that is.
Frontier Psychiatrist.
One more thing I want to talk about here before we get to the second verse lyrics is this unused sample that ended up not making the final project. And trust me, there are quite a few unused samples here in this project. These chops taken from the song One Day With You by fellow Australian Plunderphonics act Pogo, the only difference being the Avalanches aren't homophobic, but I chopped up some of the instrumental parts towards the beginning of this song. And then I pitched them down one semitone and up 30 cents, or a net a net total of negative 70 cents. And there's a lot of high pass too, but I ended up not using them because I felt like it cluttered the mix too much.
All about cowboys, pigeons, Frontier Psychiatrist. Frontier Psychiatrist.
Okay, and with all that out of the way, we can continue to the next lyrical section. Alright, so the first sample I'm going to talk about here, which I'm sure almost all of you recognize, is taken from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song, more specifically, Yo Home to Bel-Air by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
Now this is a story all about...
which I used to replace the line of, "Did I ever tell you this story about?" Sampled from Aunt Teresa's Lost Mittens. I mentioned earlier that this was one of the easier samples to replace, mostly because when I thought of that Aunt Teresa sample, this was the first thing that came to mind. It was kind of obvious, mainly because, Did I Ever Tell You the Story About kind of has a lot of parallels with Now This Is a Story All About, etc., etc. So I used an acapella from the Fresh Prince theme song.
Now this is a story all about...
And I also did a couple of record scratches here. And yeah, that's the first line here.
Now this is a story all about...
Next up is Cowboys.
Cowboys.
Which I used as the replacement for, well, the word cowboys in the original, sampled from the Wayne and Shuster I Was a TV Addict sketch. But in my remake, it's sampled from MF Doom's, well, actually, Mad Villain's Rhinestone Cowboy. So I sampled the part towards the end of the song where Doom says, "He's the Rhinestone Cowboy," one final time.
Find him on the grind, he's the Rhinestone Cowboy. Cowboys.
And I also had I had the sample crossfade into another sample of him making like an S, like a S sound, to change cowboy into the plural form, since that's the form of the word that's used in the original.
Cowboys.
Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that the sample's pitched up a semitone. This is what it sounds like at its normal pitch.
Find him on the grind, he's the Rhinestone Cowboy.
And then pitched up.
Find him on the grind, he's the Rhinestone Cowboy.
So yeah. And then of course I also did a little bit of record scratching. Here's the full unedited clip. Well, actually, there's nothing to extend here. I was originally going to use the South Park episode Cat Orgy for this, because I remember how in that episode, I guess the main plot or the subplot of the episode is Cartman is pretending to be a cowboy, even going as far as parodying Will Smith's Wild Wild West. But nothing I found from that episode I could get to work here, and in hindsight I think the Doom sample was more fitting, especially considering he is featured on the 20th anniversary reissue of the Since I Left You album, on a remix or a rendition of Tonight May Have to Last Me All My Life. Oh yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention is I was also at one point considering using an instrumental portion of Rhinestone Cowboy for the instrumental interlude in the middle of the song. And then here it is with everything.
Frontier. 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 Frontier.
but I decided not to because I felt like it added too much to the mix. And then next we have this sample, Pigeons.
Then Pigeons.
Taken from Anthony Fantano's review of Aesop Rock's Integrated Tech Solutions, which I used to replace the Midgets lyric, and I apologize for using that term, but that's what's sampled in the original. But a bit of backstory on this one. So, ever since I first heard Frontier Psychiatrist, I've always misheard that lyric as both pigeons and bitches, but I initially assumed it was probably the former. Of course, I know what the lyrics are now, but for this project, I decided to go with somebody saying pigeons because that's what it still sounds like to me to this day. So I went on Filmot. I was looking for clips of people saying the word pigeons, but then I eventually decided to narrow it down to Fantano's channel because I felt like the way he speaks would kind of like flow really well with the rest of the lyrics, and also, let's be real, it's a lot easier to pull from people whose work you're already familiar with. So yeah, I sampled him saying the word pigeons in this review,
which is about another obsession, pigeons.
Just the pigeons word, and then here's some more record scratches. And together they sound like this.
Then pigeons.
This is another sample that I think in hindsight was a really great choice, considering that midgets is not really a socially acceptable term anymore, and I feel like a remake of this song should, reflect that. Now allow me to contradict myself by revealing our next sample here, which is a clip of Cartman saying the Indians.
The Indians. And
well, the full set of chops is this.
and the Indians.
And which I used to replace the Indians sample from Flip Wilson's Cowboys and Colored People. I used this word because I thought it would flow better, not because I was just trying to keep it in despite the connotations or whatever. But I sampled this old South Park short from, I think, the year the show premiered, where Jay Leno visits Mr. Garrison's class to talk with them about the meaning of Thanksgiving, and then he asks Hartman to give a definition of Thanksgiving, and this is like part of what he says.
And they gave thanks for the food and for the Indian.
So I sampled him saying the Indians, and I also sampled him saying and
for
I sampled and so that I could change it into and the Indians. By the way, this isn't a full episode. It was just made for the Tonight Show. But I digress. So yeah, I sampled him saying and then the Indians, and then and again to kind of transition into the next sample. And then there's also some record scratches here too. And all together that sounds like this. I'm gonna pull this down.
and the Indians.
And now for a significantly more problematic sample, the one I used to replace the title of the track, Frontier Psychiatrist, which in my remake is taken from this 6.5-hour live stream from music reviewer, or I guess now ex-music reviewer, Brad Taste in Music, who was reacting to a video where someone was trying to argue why they thought Melanie Martinez was innocent with regards to what she did to Timothy Heller. But anyway, for the uninitiated, I'm going to explain in a moment why I feel like this was a really poor choice of sample in hindsight, but first let me explain why it's here. So, like I mentioned earlier, for this project I was like changing around lyrics, and I wanted to maintain the spirit of the original track, without, just copying the lyrics word for word. But the title was the one thing that I could not change. Like, obviously, I mean, why would I change the title into something else? It's the title. So I decided to, go to Filmot to find maybe like an iteration or like an utterance of the title in maybe a different context. However, Frontier Psychiatrist is such a unique phrase that I figured the only places I'd hope to find it were, 1, in the original song, 2, in the Wayne and Chester sketch sampled in the original song, which I could not do either of those because I would break my rules for this series, and 3, people referencing the original song. And most of what I found on Filmot fell into 1 and 3. But among all of the results, I did find a clip from this Brad Taste in Music stream where he obviously, he was referencing the original song, saying it in the same manner as in the original.
Frontier Psychiatrist.
Like, obviously he was, referencing the song there. But I decided to sample it anyway because I felt like, it was probably, in terms of what I could sample for the title, it was probably the best it was going to get. I couldn't really find anything better. So yeah, I just took him saying the title.
Frontier Psychiatrist.
I pitched it down one semitone here. There's a little bit of record scratching here as well. And then together these two tracks sound like this.
Frontier Psychiatrist.
And yeah, it plays in all the same spots as the sample does in the original track. One thing I will say though, I do feel like this is kind of cheating in a way because this sample only really exists by virtue of the original song existing. Had it not been made, he most likely would not have made this reference.
Frontier Psychiatrist.
Well, either way, I say this sample is problematic because of all of the controversy and drama last year surrounding Brad and his girlfriend. So I was writing the notes for this video around July, August of last year, and this sample managed to age worse than milk in the human-ass Miami weather during that time. Like, as I was writing the notes for this video, I originally had the idea of using this specific clip like much earlier in 2025 or maybe even late 2024, like well before all the abuse allegations and the leaked audio and then the really weird freestyle he did about it afterwards. In fact, my reason for putting this Brad sample in here in the first place was because originally I wanted to actually give an intentional nod to him, because around the time I released the Face to Face with Newer Samples video, he got a request on a stream from someone to react to it, and needless to say, he was absolutely stunned. He gave it a 10 out of 10, he reposted it on his YouTube and Twitter pages, and he even commented on the video, which prompted me to check out the stream on which he did the reaction. And I will say that was an absolutely, like, great day for me, like, really, like, the first 2 weeks that video was out. But I feel like that doesn't really mean much in the face of all the developments surrounding the guy and all the, like, stuff he did to his girlfriend. Like, it disgusts me to see how quickly and effortlessly he's tarnished his reputation, and now hearing the sample of him kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth, or should I say, Brad taste in my mouth. If I could go back and change it, I probably would. Okay, well, moving on from that, we have the sample I used as a replacement for the "I felt strangely hypnotized" line. I took a clip from this Cinemasker video where James Rolfe and Doug Walker, who play the AVG and Nostalgia Critic respectively, but you probably already know that, they were playing Batman Returns for the SNES, and I sampled this one part where Doug says, "Nah, I'm just hypnotized." So I'll play it here.
Maybe I should go after you. Nah, I'm just hypnotized by those bats.
So I just sampled the "Nah, I'm just hypnotized" part.
Nah, I'm just hypnotized.
Alright. Yeah, I did a little bit of chopping.
Nah.
And a little of some record scratching sounds here too. And then, oh yeah, and also at the end of the word hypnotized, there's a bit of a pitch dip. I was trying to change the inflection of Doug's voice with that here. And then, altogether, these three tracks sound like this.
Nah, I'm just hypnotized.
So yeah. The next three samples here I used to replace the line of "I was in another world, a world of..." They all play in quick succession, but I'll go through each of them. So first we have this, which is taken from Jack Harlow's First Class. I sampled the very beginning of the song where he says "I've been a," and then it goes into the G-L-A-M. But anyway, yeah, I sampled that part of the song, the first lyric. There's a little bit of record scratching here too. In fact, I did the record scratching for the whole line here with just this one sample. So together, again, they sound like this. And my intention here. Oh, let me play the whole thing here. Yeah, you probably recognize this song. It's not that old. Technically speaking, this sample is a mondegreen. My intention was to trick listeners into thinking he was saying I'm inna as opposed to I binna. Kind of like how in the title track of Since I Left You, the titular sample actually says Since I Met You, but we all hear Since I Left You because we're hearing it with the title of the track in mind. Then right after that we have this sample. Whole New World. The Whole New World, taken from Whole New World, Pretend World by Sophie. And fun fact, the title of the record that this song is from is also a mondegreen, but anyway, I sampled the vocals right at the beginning of the song just before the synths hit. Whole New World. Yeah, just the vocals, just the Whole New World part. And I pitched it up one semitone, but that's, well, yeah, and a little bit of like slight high cut, but that's pretty much like the extent of the editing of this clip here. The idea to use this sample in particular came to me pretty early on during the production of this project. The line of Another World almost instantly reminded me of this Sophie song, so I decided to go with it. I also believe that this is one of, if not the only vocal sample in this project that isn't fully or almost fully mono, so there's that. And then after that, we have this long with sample. With. Which essentially acts as a replacement for the a world of portion of the I was in another world, a world of line. And here it's taken from the video Cat Goes to Kmart by Alien Myth 64 from his PS2 Cats series, which if you haven't, you might be familiar with. If you haven't seen it, you should really check it out. It's like reminiscent of like OG YouTube. It's really funny. But anyway, I was trying to think of a good replacement for the part of the I was in another world line where they say a world of, as I mentioned earlier. And I figured maybe I could do something like, maybe I could sample somebody saying a world with, or maybe just the word with, which admittedly, initially I thought that wouldn't work. I didn't think that would flow so well with the rest of the lyrics. But as I was thinking of samples to use, this video came to mind where in one part of it, one of the cats says this.
And eat some cereal with your blue Powerade. Blue Powerade. With.
And for some reason I thought like the with would be really good to sample. In the final project I did shorten it. I took like the beginning and end of it and like kind of trimmed the middle and then had one crossfade into the other. I felt like it would be pretty funny to sample this video in particular as like an Easter egg. And also because I wanted to sample, a few more obscure things in this project. I didn't want the whole thing to be like really known stuff. I mean, that's obviously not what the Avalanches did. So, and if I'm maintaining the spirit of the original song, I should also maybe keep at least a couple of my samples, somewhat obscure, which I know a lot of the ones I used here are very much not, but still. Oh yeah, and of course here's the final edited sample again.
With.
After that is the sample I used to replace the 20,000 Girls line, which here is taken from a scene from Ted 2, yes, the second Ted movie from Seth MacFarlane. So I was trying to think of something that would be a good alternative to a line like 20,000 Girls, and during this I thought of the infamous scene from Ted 2, where Ted is looking through John's computer, and then he finds insane amounts of porn, and then he, of course, blurts out, "There's so much porn!" You probably know the scene. I've seen Ted's reaction in GIF form on Twitter.
Fuck! Holy shit, dude, what's the matter? What happened? What's going on? There's so much porn!
Yeah. I thought of that scene, and then it kind of hit me. Girls and porn carry similar connotations. I'm not saying girls are inherently pornographic. That's not what I'm getting at here. I mean more in the sense that girls and porn carry similar connotations with respect to the specific sources in which the words girls and porn are being said here. Like the line 20,000 girls, and then the line there's so much porn from this scene. And I felt like this line from the film would do a great job at emphasizing the sheer inanity of the whole situation, like in the original song, like how 20,000 Girls does it in the original. I sampled specifically the so much porn part without the word theirs. First we have the word so playing.
So?
And then some record scratches. And then so much porn.
So much porn!
I did it in that fashion to emulate the way the 20,000 Girls sample plays in the original Frontier Psychiatrist. It sounds like 20,000 girls. He says 20, and then there's a record scratch, and then 20,000 girls. And I also sampled the word "and" from the same scene. Just, not in the same moment, just within the same scene.
Out there and meet somebody. Out there and meet somebody. And
here, this and. So, yeah, that's what I did for this line. This ended up being one of my favorite, recreations, one of my favorite lines in this project. And of course, here's how everything sounds all together again.
So much porn!
The next 4 samples here cover the milk and rectangles to an optometrist line. So, I'm gonna go through each of them. For the milk and rectangles part, I was initially thinking of recreating this part verbatim without changing the words, but eventually settled on changing the words anyway. In this case, I changed them to beef and octagons, beef replacing milk since, they both come from cows, and octagons replacing rectangles because they're both shapes. So let me explain these sample choices in more detail. First, the beef sample...
Beef!
Is taken from Food Battle 2006 by Smosh. The second of the 2 videos of theirs that I sampled in this project, and another one from the Food Battle series in general. The idea came to me since I had already sampled a different installment of Food Battle in this project, and out of nowhere, the scene where Anthony says to Ian, "What do you think ink's made out of? Beef?" Came to my mind when I was thinking of a replacement for milk.
What do you think ink's made out of? Beef!
This is during the part where they challenge each other to use their food as a pen. But anyway, beef jumped out at me as the perfect replacement for the milk sample. It was also a really great way of driving home the idea to viewers that I could replace these words with something different and still have the song mean the same thing or have the same general story. So I sampled the word beef, and that was that.
Beef!
And then right below, we have the word and taken from a source that I already talked about earlier in this video, Food Battle 2011, but I also sampled a little bit of it later on for the second verse here. So I sampled the section towards the end where they're about to kill each other with their foods, and Anthony's explaining that he hit a bow and arrow in his lollipop.
Oh yeah, and I hit a bow and arrow inside my real lollipop.
I sampled this and yeah, I used it to connect the words beef and octagons. Speaking of which, octagons, that sample is taken from, as you can tell, the Jack Black Octagon segment that he did with Elmo on Sesame Street. You probably remember it. It was a huge meme back in the day.
Octagon!
Every, OG YTPer will recognize this.
I totally forgot to bring an octagon! This is embarrassing. Okay, don't worry.
Yeah. Oh, we can't forget the...
Oh, man!
Oh, man! Yeah. For this word, I was originally considering sampling the iconic scene from the SpongeBob episode Life of Crime, where SpongeBob pulls out some chocolate, and then Patrick sees them and he exclaims, "Rectangles!" But I realized that getting that specific clip to fit with the rest of the lyrics would require speeding up tremendously. It would probably end up sounding like rectangles. Since Patrick doesn't necessarily say it quickly or anything. But since I was already doing this thing of replacing the words with other words or phrases that mean or allude to similar things, I decided why not do a different shape altogether. And once I considered I could do that, I almost instantly thought of this Jack Black sketch, and from there I decided that there was no way I couldn't use it. I mean, I've already sampled like 5 different memes on this thing, why not just double down? So I sampled him, I sampled Jack saying the word octagon.
Octagon!
And then I also sampled him making an S sound, like a S, to make the word plural. Because the word rectangles in the original Frontier Psychiatrist is obviously plural. So, yeah.
Fantastic sides.
Apparently here I sampled the S sound he makes when he says 8 fantastic sides.
8 fantastic sides.
And then, of course, here are the 2 clips together.
Octagon!
Yeah. And then, finally, the sample I used to replace the "To an Optometrist" line, which is taken from the Steven Universe episode, An Indirect Kiss. Now, I don't remember the entire context of the episode. I mean, let's be real, I haven't seen the show, don't care to, but, basically what happens is Connie discovers that she can see without her glasses, because I think Steven just kissed her, and, one of the things she says upon discovering that is, "What am I going to tell my optometrist?"
What am I going to tell my parents? What am I going to tell my optometrist? I don't even know!
So, yeah. I sampled the "tell my optometrist" part.
Tell my optometrist!
Sped it up a little bit here. And this is another sample I found through Filmot, since I couldn't really think of anything with the word optometrist in it, off the top of my head, off the top of my head. Then there's this "prepare your eyeballs" sample.
Now, prepare your eyeballs.
Which I used to replace the line, "the man with a golden eyeball." In my remake, I sampled this from an episode of the show Higglytown Heroes. Yes, we're really getting to like the YouTube logo kid ass samples, but a show you may or may not remember. It aired on Disney Junior back in the day when it was still Playhouse Disney. Off topic, but strangely enough, I grew up watching Playhouse Disney among the other networks when this show was still airing, and yet I have like 0 recollection of it whatsoever, but I digress. The only reason I picked the sample was because I already knew it from when I was trying to search up the credits theme to the show for something else I was doing. Oh, by the way, another aside, the theme of the show is actually written and sung by They Might Be Giants. Anyway, one time I was searching for the credit scene of the show for something else I was doing, and this specific "prepare your eyeballs" line and scene were attached to the beginning of one of the videos I found of it.
Prepare your eyeballs!
So then when I got around to doing this project, I decided to, go back through that and see if it would fit for this. And, I guess it did. The episode in particular is Kip Joins the Circus, and I think it's about, like, firefighters or something. I don't know it. But I sampled the part where one of the firefighters says, "Now, prepare your eyeballs." This one's frozen. I could probably show... Yeah, this one, here.
Now, prepare your eyeballs to be amazed as you...
So yeah, I sampled that. I took the now. And then I did some record scratching.
No.
And then I took the "prepare your eyeballs" part.
Prepare your eyeballs.
The scratching, it initially sounded a little bit different. I was initially going to use a different section of it.
No.
But I used this one. The "now" was originally also going to be a record scratch, but I just decided to keep the word in instead because it flowed with everything better. Yeah, and then altogether, these samples sound like this.
Now, prepare your eyeballs.
One more before we get to the final samples of this verse. I mentioned this earlier briefly, but I also sampled the word "now" from Smosh's Food Battle 2011.
Canyon! Turn right, now! 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 Now!
It's from the scene where Ian's trying to use his donut as a GPS, and it tells him, "Turn right, now!"
Turn right, now!
And then he turns straight into the Grand Canyon. So I sped it up, I sampled the "now."
Turn right, now! Now! Now!
And, yeah, and I used it to connect the previous samples with the last few in this verse.
Now.
Clear your eyeballs. Now.
Sucking the
Eyeballs. Now.
sucking the guts, guys.
Now. Clear your eyeballs. Now.
Sucking the guts, guys.
Now. Now. Now.
Suck.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that really this is supposed to be the now part of the now tighten your buttocks line. Alright, we're almost done with the second verse. Let's knock out these last three vocal samples real quick. First up is the replacement for, as I mentioned moments ago, Tighten Your Buttocks, which here was taken from Ghostbusters 2.
Sucking the guts, guys.
There's this one scene where Peter tells the crew, sucking the guts, guys, with the Ghostbusters.
Like sucking the guts, guys, with the Ghostbusters.
No.
Don't mind the Nikocado, we'll get to that in a moment, but...
Like sucking the guts, guys, with the Ghostbusters.
No.
Yeah, I sampled that line of his.
Sucking the guts, guys.
When I went back through the lyrics of the original Frontier Psychiatrist, the Tighten Your Buttocks line almost immediately reminded me of that scene from the movie, so that's what I used. It's, pitched down one semitone, but not much else outside of that. Alright, and then next we have, as you can tell from the window here, this sample, "Cause I Have a Double Chin," which, is taken from, well, Nikocado, yes.
Because I have a double chin.
And I use this as a replacement for the "more juice on your chin" line. So, I'm gonna give a bit of context for this one. For a long time, I thought the line in the original song was actually "pour juice on your gin," like gin and juice. So, first I considered sampling Snoop Dogg's "Gin and Juice," but I realized that the lyric during the chorus that says "gin and juice" was too melodic and wouldn't fit in the context of this project. So I decided to head to Philmont again and search "juice with some gin" and see if I could find anything. I did then find this Red Foo song, yes, the same Red Foo from LMFAO, where he says, "I need some juice with some gin," but the vocals are kind of buried under like a ton of electro, like dubstep instrumentation. Mind you, I think the song was from like 2016 as well, so as opposed to like 2011. So trying to isolate those vocals into a relatively clean stem would have been near impossible. It was then that I decided to go with chin, C-H-I-N, instead of gin, G-I-N. Technically that's what the lyric is. And then suddenly it hit me, what if I followed up "sucking the guts, guys" with a mention of double chin? It would be pretty funny since both lyrics would have to do with gaining weight. And then I figured, who better... Who better encapsulates the idea of weight gain than the internet's favorite former mukbang lolcow, Nikocado Avocado? So I searched through his channel on Philmont for any mentions of double chin, which there had to be, and then I found a video of his from 2017 called Korean Beef Ramen Noodles with My Sloth, and then I guess also his parrot here, where he says, "Cause I have a double chin," but the way he said it sounded like it would flow really well with the rest of the lyrics. Here's more of the clip.
Because I have a double chin, even when I'm super, super skinny.
And this was like relatively early into his mukbang career, before all the craziness. Lo and behold, this lyric did in fact fit. So I pitched it down one semitone to adjust the flow slightly, but other than that it was a perfect match. I chopped it a little bit. I had one sample overlap the other a little bit.
Because I have a double chin.
Just so I could get the flow to be like exactly how I wanted it to be. Also, fun fact, I came up with this specific idea well after Nick lifted the veil and came back with the skinny reveal. I unfortunately do not have Simpsons level prediction skills. Sorry. And finally, let me play on the world's smallest violin.
Let me play on the world's smallest violin.
Which is used as a replacement for, and I promised my girlfriend I'd play the violin. Shouldn't need much explaining, but this is taken from the iconic violin scene from the SpongeBob episode Squilliam Returns. When Mr. Krabs tells Squidward, "Oh, boo-hoo, let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin."
Oh, boo-hoo, let me play.
Oh wait, this is the side that has delay. No, hold on. Here.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Okay, let me just turn off the delay for the time being.
Oh, boo-hoo, let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
pretty sure you recognize that scene. No huge backstory behind this one. The violin lyric from the original Frontier Psychiatrist has always reminded me of this scene, so the choice was clear for this one. Also kind of pretty fitting sample, considering that the one right before this was from a Nick video, and he was known for playing the violin years ago. So, for the record, the final chops here, they don't consist of the whole line. I did remove some words. The entire line is, again, let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin. And here, it took some careful chopping to get this right. I removed the words a sad song for you, making it just let me play on the world's smallest violin.
Let me play on the world's smallest violin.
Along with shortening the S, the S sound in the word smallest.
Let me play on the world's smallest.
Because it is longer than it sounds here.
Play on the world's smallest. Let me play on the world's small. Play on the world's smallest.
And I had to apply a good amount of crossfade for it to sound natural too. If there was you know, like here, if there was no crossfade, it would sound really like janky, like the cuts would sound more obvious. So yeah, I needed that crossfade there. The clip itself was pitched up 3 semitones and 40 cents, which coincidentally made the violin, the violin that he actually plays, the violin music in the scene, the same key as the rest of the song, much like the AVGN sample I discussed earlier on. There's also a brief record scratch with the sample before the lyric actually plays, right here. And of course I put a delay on the word violin to mimic the delay effect at that point in the original song.
Violin.
And then one more time, everything together.
Let me play on the world's smallest violin.
And that is the second verse complete. So next I'm going to talk about the samples I used between here and the last leg of the song, from the violin breakdown until the last instance of the chorus, right before the parrot section. So in the original Frontier Psychiatrist, after the second verse finishes, there's like this interlude breakdown with like a big string sample, and then, you know, you hear the title over and over, and then it goes back into the first verse and chorus, which it's pretty much the same as the first time they appear, but with like a couple of small differences. And then after that finishes, we go into like the last leg of the song with the can you think of anything that talks? And then, you know, the parrot and all that. So I'm going to talk about the samples. Once again, I'm going to talk about the samples in between the second verse and that parrot section, which there aren't a whole lot. Most of the samples in this section are things I've already talked about, so this part of the video is probably going to be pretty brief. So the violin section, which in the original is sampled from Spitfire Prelude and Fugue from Ron Goodwin and his orchestra, that was pretty difficult to recreate. This is my recreation here. I figured I wasn't going to be able to find like an exact interpolation of the violin melody just naturally somewhere, so I instead decided to recreate the melody from scratch using another violin sample, or otherwise string sample of some kind. But then I realized, why don't I do what I did with the replacement for the Tell Me to My Face sample off the Face to Face with Newer Samples video? And I meant that quite literally. I used the same sample that I used for that section of that project in this project as well, which just so happens to be the song Jesus Etc. by Wilco. Yeah, that's the sample here. This is what my chops sound like. As you can see, it took a lot of chopping and crossfading. There's a very high pass, some reverb. I think this is like a delay of some kind, and then sidechain. But yeah, this was one of the most heavily edited samples in the whole project. But yeah, basically similar to what I did on the first project, I took the fiddle melody in the intro of the track. Here it's pitched down, but So, yeah, I took that, and I chopped it up heavily, and rearranged it to sound like the violin melody from Frontier Psychiatrist. I won't go super into detail here, since that'll take me like another 15 minutes or so, so I'll just like quickly go through each of the chops here. If you want, you can view the, the pitch information down here for each of them as I go through them. And then with everything. And then layered with this is the sample I used to recreate the Wait Till You See Her female choir vocal sample, which in this case is taken from Lemon Demon's Lifetime Achievement Award. I was trying to think of songs with like a spooky choir in the background, and Lifetime Achievement Award was a big one that came to me, so I decided to use it. I used an acapella from the song. I think it's the official acapella. I took the section in the verse in between like the two different like parts of the verse where Neil goes like ooh, and like and he layers his vocals. Although here it's drenched in heavy effects, this is what it sounds like normally, without the reverb and everything. So I took them, I pitched them down 5 semitones, but up 20 cents, and then I also chopped the sample into 2 distinct parts, and then panned them slightly to the left and right, as a way of emulating the way the Wait Till You See Her choir sample plays in the original Frontier Psychiatrist. So if you notice, I have some of the vocals off to the left, and then the other portion of the vocals off to the right. Just a little bit, though. Later on, during the breakdown with the distorted drums and everything, I copy-pasted this sample and I pitched it up another octave, but with the Pro algorithm, so as to not change the format of the sample. And all 4 of these layers sound like this. And then during the reprise of the first verse, I add these vocals in, but shortened with a bit of a fade at the end, because in the original Frontier Psychiatrist, when the first verse repeats again, the "Wait Till You See Her" vocal samples are also added into the mix. So we have this. And on that note, I love how so many people pointed out my usage of the Aim Kit animation for the song in the music video. Honestly, I absolutely love her stuff, and I think she's one of the most talented people on the platform right now. I mean, last I remember, I think she was like making a game or something, something along those lines. But either way, I love her videos. I figured there's no official music video for Lifetime Achievement Award, so why not use that? And yeah, that's basically what I did for that part of the video, and that's what I did for this part of the song. And here are the vocals with everything else. Okay, so yeah, apparently my CPU loves to run into issues occasionally, so here's my second attempt at playing everything together. And before I move on, I will reiterate something I said earlier since we're finally at this section. I did bring back Plastic Beach for this section of the track. I took a different section than what I did for the main chorus, and I layered it with the Jesus Etc. and Lifetime Achievement Award samples. So here's the Plastic Beach chops for this part of the track. We have a lead-in with this, with pitch down 5 semitones, and then this is the main loop. So, yeah, I took that first, those first 2 beats, boom, and then these 2 beats, and made a loop out of them. And those are like the backing chords that play during the middle of the track. So, here they are with everything else. And then on their own again. So yeah, this next sample here isn't a replacement for anything, it's more an Easter egg that I just kind of slipped in for fun. So during this bit with the defunk break and the title drop, Frontier Psychiatrist. There's this short sample here taken from Boards of Canada's Rue the Whirl, which I put in mostly because I just really like the song, not necessarily because I needed to. Once again, it's not a replacement for anything. Although I don't remember if I was originally going to use this as a main melodic component during this section or not. I think maybe I did, but then I just stuck with keeping a small sample from it in this break section. So here it is on its own. It's just like 1 bar from the opening of the song. Yeah, there's a lot of high pass, and yeah, that's this sample. And then here it is again with everything else. Frontier Psychiatrist. And speaking of which, next we have to talk about this. Yeah! Which is taken from Shit Show by Death Grips, which is used in place of the Count Counts Flowers sample that can be heard in Frontier Psychiatrist, and I think also Flight Tonight, where there's like a voice going like, "Ah!" Because for context, the full sample is the Count from Sesame Street. He's counting a bunch of flowers, and then he sneezes after counting all the flowers. But the sneeze in the song is cut off to sound like a yell. I was considering numerous different things for this, from the loud Negro meme to the I'm about to come guy to Dan Henschel. I'm being deadass. I was actually considering most, if not all of these at some point. I also considered as another potential Easter egg, the death sound from this super old, obscure App Store game I used to play back in like 2009 called Water Slide Extreme, where basically you have to control this guy going down a water slide, but if you go too far off the edge, the guy falls off and he just goes, "Whoa!" in like a really exaggerated manner. I'll put a clip of it up here. But this is like one of those niche things I grew up with that I kind of wanted to reference just for fun. But eventually I settled on the Death Grip song Shit Show, since the noise Ride makes is similar to the one the Count makes in the original song. Here's the extended sample. So yeah, I sampled this bitch. I pitched it down one semitone. This is what it sounds like normally. Oh yeah, and then the song just, goes into a bunch of craziness. Yeah. I sampled him going, biatch, and, which itself is sampled from Spread Eagle Across the Block. This is one of the few Death Grips albums I haven't heard yet. Well, actually, there are a couple I haven't heard, but I know that, the song that this album is from does, like, a lot of self-sampling, so technically this is a sample of their song. And there's also a little bit of like fade on both sides. Yeah! And it plays here, and then it plays again like at the next break. But yeah, that's what that scream sound is.
Psychiatrist.
Now, when I was almost done with the project, I made the last minute realization that, wait, there's some like deep breath samples from that same Count Counts Flowers clip in Frontier Psychiatrist as well. I need to find a replacement for those too. So, on a whim, and at the suggestion of someone from the Sample Sanctuary server, for those breath sounds, I decided to sample, you'll see here, Ty Dolla $ign's 2014 XXL Freshman Freestyle. Yes, the one where he's really close to the camera, I'm not kidding. It turned out to be a pretty funny sample choice too. I even like put clips of the video in the video for this song. Basically, I just sampled clips of Ty breathing in and out or saying like part of a word and arranged the chops to sound like the faint breathing during that section of Frontier Psychiatrist, because during that part, in between the you can kind of hear like a from that same Count Counts Flowers sample, and then this is what I did with the Ty Dolla $ign sample. Yeah, here's a couple of the chops.
Oh, pussy is this, she say $sign, this.
Some breaths.
While I'm getting high. Get dry, get dry. I say who pussy. Getting high, getting high, make a deep, dish, 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 dish.
Most of the chops are at the original pitch, except this chop,
dish,
which is just part of Ty saying the word this. Pitched down 2 semitones. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that this and the Death Grip sample from earlier are both panned to the right a good amount. And like I mentioned earlier, I also had the freestyle video appear like flipped around in a bunch of different directions, YTPMV style, in the project's music video. Just to make it clear, if I haven't done so enough already, how off the wall everything about this really is. Oh yeah, and here it is with everything else. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that the breath samples play one more time in this like additional break section right here.
Frontier Psychiatrist.
And after that is another quick Easter egg sample here, this time from the song South God Queen by the group Death's Dynamic Shroud. For those not in the know, a very prominent act in the vaporwave and online electronic and experimental scenes, but I'm pretty sure most people watching my channel probably know who they are. This one was another one that I just wanted to put in here as a nod to the group's music, not necessarily because I had to. So here's the sample on its own. So it's pitched down 1 semitone and up 20 cents. So it's this part here that goes, girls, girls on top. And I pitched it down 1 semitone and up 20 cents. This is what it sounds like normally. Yeah, the whole track is really glitchy and everything. There's also this part here with like some stuttery chops that I bounced, and then I added like a bit of a fade into, so I could have it lead into like this whole break section, and then here it is with everything else.
Frontier Psychiatrist.
Next is a sample from Boards of Canada's 6010. So I'm going to explain. In the original Frontier Psychiatrist, during the last little instrumental interlude before the first verse starts up again, you hear these like distorted drum samples taken from Lover and a Friend by Eddie Bo, with this really heavy like delay, like feedback effect on them at a couple points where it gets really like, it's kind of like when you hold two phones to each other and it goes, that happens like right before the first verse starts up again. And I figured that to recreate this, I would layer another drum break on top of the You Know I'm No Good break that I, already talked about. So I first considered using the drums from the end of JPEG Mafia's New Black History, like the if you heard the song, you know what I'm talking about. But I felt like the high-pitched ringing from that part of the song would kind of get annoying, even though even though it would only last like 8 seconds, but yeah, still. I also thought of using a different BOC song, Aquarius, since there's a somewhat distorted drum passage that comes in later on during the song, like a... In fact, at one point I was actually considering using both of them, but I ended up not doing either of those and instead went with sampling the drums from Boards of Canada's 6010. The drums from right when the song begins. So what I did was I looped the first couple of bars of the song that have the drums in them with a little bit of high pass, a little bit of low pass, and then we have this echo this echo effect that I turn on and off with some automation here, and the feedback gets turned up like the more the drums play. There's also, we have some OTT, and there's a limiter on this track too, because I figured, like, the drums might get too loud in the mix without one, given the echo, like, the delay effect. So, these drums on their own sound like this. Yeah, like that. And you can hear how towards the end, like, the feedback gets really loud. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that I slowed down the drums with the repitch algorithm so that they wouldn't get warped, just so that they'd get lower in pitch. And for the record, this is what they sound like without the echo. Yeah, but yeah, that's what I did for that part. And here they are with everything else.
Frontier! 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 Frontier Psychiatrist!
Okay, and one more sample before we get to the final leg of the song, and it's this slide whistle sound, which I took from the 2000 production logo or vanity card of British TV powerhouse Ragdoll Productions. So another thing that happens in the original Frontier Psychiatrist track is that after the whole instrumental interlude, the first verse starts up again, that boy needs therapy and everything else. It's pretty much exactly the same as the first instance of the verse, with the exception of the Wait Till You See Her choir sample, which I already talked about, the replacement in my remake, the Lemon Demon samples, and this other sample here that I'm going to talk about now. As is the case for my remake follows the same exact format, which means that this whole repeat of the first verse it has all the same samples. So I'm not gonna talk about them again because I already did earlier. So this time around, when the song gets to the line "You're a nut," there's a cuckoo clock sound that plays on top of it, like a boom, boom, boom. And to remake that, I used the 2000 end card or TV logo, and it wouldn't be a Nickster project without at least one logo sample of the company Ragdoll Productions, which, a bit of an aside, a fun fact here, they're the company that made Teletubbies and Booba and like all those weird British preschool shows from the 90s and early 2000s. They made like 80% of them, and yeah. But anyway, in this logo there's like these ascending and descending slide whistle sounds that play while the trademark, while the symbol of the company is like being drawn with a crayon. And at the time, I think it still is, it's like this it's this smiley face with like a orange scribble that's supposed to be like orange curly hair. I forgot, there's a delay on this too, but I'll turn it off for the time being. And then you have the logo. So yeah, it's like the logo being drawn on like a leather-like surface. And I took some portions of the whistle sounds and then I chopped them up. I added a little bit of delay to like kind of recreate the cuckoo clock sound, or to kind of emulate like the delay on the cuckoo clock sound in the original. And some of you might ask, well, why didn't you just use a different cuckoo clock sound? Well, I did this instead because I thought it was more interesting and creative, and also, why not let my logo autism bleed in a little through this project? Like I said, it wouldn't be a Nickster project without a logo sample. At least one. Or at least a few, although in this project there's only one. It's this one. But yeah, this is what it sounds like on its own. And then with everything else.
What is that thing?
You're insane!
It's the word.
And now we are finally in the home stretch. I'm going to be talking about the last leg of the song here, from the parrot, bird is the word section, all the way to the end. Another section a lot of people really seem to love. So let me give a bit of background. Anyone familiar with the original Frontier Psychiatrist knows that during the last leg of the song, there's a series of exchanges between a woman and a girl, centered around a question that the woman asks the girl. Can you think of anything that talks, other than a person? The girl responds with, a bird? And a bunch of parrot noises then ensue. There's two sets of parrot noises in this section, and in the second, they sample a parrot that sounds like it's going, like it's almost trying to talk in a way. There's a ton of record scratching. It's one of the most creative parts of the track, really, but I bring this up because ever since I first heard that song, I always thought those parrot noises, the second set of parrot noises with the vague talking, were very reminiscent of Peter Griffin from Family Guy, like Peter Griffin's voice. Like if you go back and listen to the part that I'm talking about in the song, you'll probably hear it too. In particular, it kind of reminds me of his rendition of Surfin' Bird, or, Bird is the Word. So through that comparison, I eventually came to the realization that for this project, I should sample him singing Bird is the Word. That's genius! Now, for the record, in the original Frontier Psychiatrist, all the dialogue during this girl, woman, and parrot section is sampled from the same record, Aunt Teresa's Please Tell Me a Story, with the exception of the first set of parrot noises, the wow, wow, wow. That's sampled from a Disney record. I forgot the name here. It's checking my notes here. It's sampled from The Story and Song from the Haunted Mansion. It's a record that Disney produced in the late 60s. But apart from that, everything else. Oh yeah, and also the that's also sampled from a different record. But apart from those two things, all the dialogue is sampled from the Aunt Teresa record, Please Tell Me a Story, which I mentioned earlier, but that detail is really important here, considering that in my remake, this section is comprised almost entirely of Family Guy samples, the vocals for the record, not the instrumental. Most of the instrumental elements here carry over from the earlier verses. But either way, I figured if I was going to sample Peter's whole bird is the word thing for the parrot section, I needed to be stylistically consistent and sample Family Guy for that entire portion of the song. That ended up eliciting a lot of different reactions, a lot of them positive, well, most of them. Like, there were a few people who, like, did not like how much Family Guy there is at the back end of this project. Like, they thought I used too much, but that was kind of the point. I wanted to keep it consistent, because in the original Frontier Psychiatrist, like I said, that whole part revolves around samples from one singular record. Well, regardless, I'm going to go through this section and show you what I did for all the vocals. So, I sampled 3 different episodes of Family Guy for this section. The first is I Dream of Jesus, the episode that started the whole Bird is the Word running gag in the show, and the one that contains all the Bird is the Word clips sampled in this project. The first line I sampled here is this exchange between Peter and Brian, which I used as a replacement for the "Can you think of anything that talks?" lines. This is the sample on its own.
Huh. That's odd. I thought that would be big news. A headline regarding mass awareness of a certain avian variety.
And then that leads into the second part here, which I'll get to in a moment. I took parts of this dialogue and I cut it up a bit so it could fit within this section. I took Peter's line here, 2 of his lines.
Huh. That's odd. I thought that would be big news.
You thought what would be big news?
And then I cut out this part from Brian here.
Well, there seems to be an absence of a certain ornithological piece.
And then I cut this part out as well. And then I left this in.
A headline regarding mass awareness of a certain avian variety. What do you...
So I used that first line of Peter's there, and then part of his, like, second line. And then I put them together for the lead-in into the parrot squawking, but really lowest screaming. But once again, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. there's quite a few samples here to talk about. Oh yeah, and then for the sometimes the parrot talks line, I sampled a different line from the scene with Peter and Brian in the kitchen. Like, same scene, just a different line.
What are you talking about? Oh, have you not heard?
Okay, now here's an extended portion of it.
What are you talking about? Oh, have you not heard? It was my understanding that everyone had heard.
Heard what? Brian, don't!
Oh, well, bad.
Yeah. And then, of course, the actual scratched parrot sounds. Once again, the second set of them. I'm going to talk about the first later on. The one here, this is the recreation of the... So, this is what they sound like on their own.
Where is the word? Where is the word? Where is the word? Where is the American? Where is the word? American bird. Where is the word?
Yes, that is a lot to take in, but I use this clip from the same episode where Peter is delivering a PSA on TV about "Bird is the Word," the Surfin' Bird song. I was originally gonna do this with the scene where he actually sings the song with the song playing behind it and he does the dance and everything. But I realized it would be better if I did it using a scene with just completely clean vocals with nothing behind them. I do actually have some chops here from my attempts at using the other parts of him singing "Bird is the Word."
Bird is the word. Bird is the word.
I didn't think it was really good.
Now, well, America, bird is the word. Now, well, America, bird is the word.
That's some unedited chops there, or unwarped, I guess, unscratched, I guess you could say. So yeah, This is the scene in particular that I used. Well, actually...
Word is the word.
Actually, that's one of the record scratch samples I did here. This is the full scene I used for that part, for the whole parrot thing.
According to Gallup polls, 1 in 12 Americans is unaware.
I'm gonna have to move this to like another part so that you can see.
Number of us. According to Gallup polls, 1 in 12 Americans is unaware that the bird is the word. That the bird is the word.
Well, there's some pitch automation here, but yeah, I use this scene to do pretty much all of this, with the exception of these chops, which are taken from the part of the scene where he's in the kitchen, still dancing to Surfing Bird, and he does the surfing blah, 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 blah part. Let me see if I can expand this. No, that's some more record scratch samples. This is the scene that I'm talking about here. This part here. That I used that to do this. Yeah. So basically what I did was I cut up the dialogue to match the rhythm and cadence of the parrot sounds, including the microsamples, then used Time Shaper to do the record scratching sounds. That's pretty much the gist of this part. It's just, I chopped it up very meticulously to get it to sound as much like the second parrot section in the original song as possible, and then I put, Time Shaper. I adjusted all the clips with Time Shaper on top, and yeah.
Word is the word. Word is the word. Word is the word.
To be honest, this was actually pretty fun to do. And then after that, we have this sample here. Don't mind the Dragon Tales intro. That's for a later segment.
Hey, what's your big idea?
I'm gonna move this so that you can see what I'm talking about.
Hey, what's your big idea?
This song's from the 1960s. It shouldn't be in this jukebox.
Wait, can I have that record?
So, yeah, that's the last sample that comes from this episode, which I used as a replacement for the, record, that line at the end of the track. Since he also says record during that scene. Basically, I lined up his mention of record with the beat switch, or transition to the outro, like in the original, and then I applied a delay effect on that word as well, also like in the original.
Hey, what's your big idea?
This song's from the 1960s. It shouldn't be in this jukebox.
Wait, can I have that record? Record.
Like that. So yeah, I lined up the word record with the beginning of the outro section of the song, and then I extended the left of the sample back up until the part where the bird is the word record is taken out of the jukebox. I've had a couple of people point out that this sample in particular was really clever, considering that one of the lines in this scene is, "This record is from the 1960s, it doesn't belong in this jukebox." For the context, in this episode, the Griffins are at a 1950s themed diner in that scene, and one of the employees notices that Surfin' Bird is playing in the diner's jukebox, even though that song came out in 1963. And considering this project is a rendition of Frontier Psychiatrist, where I aim to use newer samples specifically, this line fits perfectly from a contextual perspective, and I can wholeheartedly admit that that was not intentional at all. But either way, it's a really cool detail, and thank you to everyone who mentioned it. The second episode I sampled is The Manchurian Candidate, and I used it for the first set of parrot samples, the wow, 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 wow. So I already mentioned that in the original Frontier Psychiatrist, there's two different sets of parrot samples towards the end of the track. I already said that the second one consists of the Peter Griffin-esque talking noises, but the first, which plays right after the girl in this part of the song says, "A bird? Yeah!" consists of like a lot of loud squawking, almost reminiscent of a scream. So, given that I was already sampling Family Guy for the other sections, I almost immediately realized what I needed to sample for this section. So, to explain, this episode, The Manchurian Candidate, has the infamous scene where Lois enters her mom's room at Pewterschmidt's house and finds Peter licking her you-know-what, and then, after which she just screams out, "Peter!" I'm sure you know the scene. It was a big meme when it was new. A lot of people like praised Alex Borstein for her performance here, but I digress. This is the scene. This one. Yeah. I used the "Peter" scream as the replacement for the parrot squawking. I chopped up her scream to, once again, match the rhythm of the parrot section in the original song, and then I did some record scratching on top of that. Not going through every individual, like, scratch and, like, chop here, because that would take me ages, and I know we've already been here a long time explaining a bunch of samples, so I'm just gonna play this section on its own. Sometimes a parrot talks. Yeah, this section was a little time consuming to do, but it was also really fun. It was really fun to do. It was one of my favorite parts of this project to complete. Oh yeah, also before all the chops we have there's this orchestral stab, like from right before Lois screams. And she gasps. I sampled that as a way of like just very quickly leading into this section, and even in the video I have this scene zoom in on screen right at this exact moment, and then the chops ensue, and yeah, that's this part in a nutshell.
In variety. What are you talking about? Oh, have you not heard?
And then the third and last episode sampled here is Believe It or Not, Joe's Walking on Air. It's the episode where Joe gets the surgery and he can walk again, but then he forces the other guys to do all this crazy stuff now that he can walk. I used this as a replacement for that small segment in the original song after both parrot sections are done, where the girl laughs for a bit and the woman replies, "Yeah, some birds are funny when they talk." In particular, I sampled the infamous hammock of cake cutaway that you might have seen. It's basically in this cutaway, Peter's shopping for Jack A. Harry, and like there's a bunch of like crazy stuff on her list. Because I distinctly remember that he does laugh in this cutaway in a similar way to the girl in the original song. So here's more of the clip. Here's like, here's the clip extended.
Where are you getting these units of measurement from?
Mary?
That is still funny. Oh. That is still funny. Oh.
So I sampled that for this dialogue, and yeah, the sample starts at his laugh.
That is still funny. Oh.
And is actually mixed with the aforementioned "Can I Have That Record" dialogue from the Bird is the Word episode, because my intention was to make it seem like these two samples were part of the same scenario.
That is still funny. Oh. Hey, what's your big idea?
This song's from the 1960s. It shouldn't be in this jukebox.
Wait, can I have that reckon?
Oh yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention before we get to like the final instrumental section here. These little split-second record scratches. I use them to mimic kind of like the what, and then like the little sample that plays in the outro, like periodically in between like the horses galloping and the like in between all of that, you hear like after like every 2 or so bars like a little like, and it's like a tiny little record scratch. So I use this. I use these little chops to do that, and then there's also, like I said, a wee before the girls laugh, and then the outro dialogue. This is also taken from. Oh wait, no, that's from an entirely different project altogether. What I just copy pasted, but these are taken from the same hammock of cake cutaway, but these are some. This is some Time Shaper stuff I bounced. It's Peter's laugh, but I did the same record scratch stuff to it. And now we are finally at the outro of the song. Let's go! Alright. So, all the rest of the samples beyond this point right here, were used to create the final instrumental section in the outro with the Latin drums and the guitar melody, the you get the idea. Which in the original song samples Ana el Negro Zombón by George Barnes. So, we have a few, like, percussion tracks here. The first one that I'm going to talk about being a sample from LCD Sound System's Dance Yourself Clean. Really all I did here was I just looped the percussion from the intro of the track, and I just have it playing from here until this part of the outro. I have it playing just for most of the outro. And then with everything else. So yeah, that's the first drum track I sampled. And then below that, layered with this, we have this percussion from Where You Get Your Coke From by JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown. I took the high-pitched percussion that plays during each one of their verses, the like the ding 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 ding. I pitched it up 2 semitones, as you can see here, to be in key with the rest of the outro, because the that little percussive like ding 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 does have a key, so I had to pitch it up. And then I time stretched it a bit so that it would be synced to the tempo. And then I used a lot of EQ and drum bus here to kind of control like the harsher frequencies of the perc loop. The clicky percussion has some like very loud, kind of piercing frequencies that I felt would get annoying and cause the loop to clash with everything around it. So I did my best to kind of like attenuate that so that it would sound better in the mix. Originally, I just planned to mix the Dance Yourself Clean and Where You Get Your Coke From loops without much else, but eventually I decided to experiment with other drum and melody loops, settling on the addition of a couple other things, as you'll see here. Without this EQ, this is what this drum loop sounds like. Without the drum bass either. And without the OTT. If you notice, there's like a very like there's a very like pinpricky kind of sound there, so I had to like attenuate that exact spot with the EQ, and also the drum bus so that it wouldn't pierce through the mix as much. And then of course this with the LCD Sound System drums and everything else. And then on top of these two loops, I used some percussive and melodic elements from the theme song to Dragon Tales, yes, the PBS Kids show from back in the day. For some reason, some elements of the George Barnes sample in the original Frontier Psychiatrist kind of remind me of the Dragon Tales theme, so I decided to go with using it for this project. I sampled 2 different parts of the theme. This percussion loop taken from about like halfway through the song. In the right channel, I had to check the utility. So yeah, just this part here, I took that like percussion loop. That's one of the things I used. There's a lot of high pass, and like I mentioned, I isolated the right channel because a lot of that percussion's towards the right. Oh yeah, and also pitch down 30 cents, the whole thing, and then this chord right at the beginning of the theme. This first beat. This first beat right here, which is also pitched down 30 cents, and then conversely to the first one, I put a good amount of low pass on it. There's still a little bit of high pass though, I looped it. Well, and actually, I didn't pitch them all down just 30 cents. It's actually 30 cents, and then the next four are down 7 semitones and 30 cents. And then it goes back up, and then down again, and then it cycles like that every 4 repetitions of this sample so that it stays in key with the rest of the song. Because the chord progression of this outro section, the chord progression of the George Barnes sample is like a dun 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 dun. So yeah, I had to do that so that it would, stay in key. Towards the end of the project's production, I decided to also add a sample from Massive Attack's Blue Lines, the title track off of the album of the same name. I took the drum loop from the track's intro, which itself is sampled from, what is it, like Sneakin' in the Back, Tom something? Sneakin' in the Back by Tom Scott and the LA Express. But yeah, I took the opening drums, and then I chopped it a bit to match the pattern of the drums from the George Barnes sample. Well, actually, I've been using the George Barnes sample to refer to this entire section, but another sample was actually found after I finished notes for this video, but before I started filming. Another drum sample is actually used in the original Frontier Psychiatrist during this section, and it's from Michael Jackson's rendition of Ain't No Sunshine off of, I think, Got to Be There, his first actual album. But yeah, for sake of simplicity, I'm just referring to this whole section as being a replacement for the George Barnes sample. So either way, I took this drum loop, so I took that drum loop from the opening of the track and I just chopped it up and put a little bit of EQ, a lot of OTT. Well, not a lot, but still some. And then I, of course, mixed them with all the other percussion samples present here. Speaking of which, I mentioned this earlier, but I also brought back the drums from Radiohead's High and Dry for this section, just chopped in a different manner from how they were in the second verse of the song. And, of course, we have the Cypress Hill Insane in the Brain neigh, because the horse neigh in Frontier Psychiatrist does play in the outro as well. And, yeah, and then you just, all together.
Big idea! This song's from the 1960s. It shouldn't be in this jukebox.
Wait, can I have that record?
And, oh yeah, one more thing here is, before I get to the last two, melodic samples, I was also considering using Mama's Lamp by Kittycraft for this section, but I felt like it added too much to the overall mix, so I left it out. This is what it would have sounded like.
Shouldn't be in this jukebox.
Wait, can I have that record?
by the way, you should check out the album that this song "Mama's Lamp" is from. Beats and Breaks on the Flower Patch. Really great album. Underrated one too. And here we are, the last two samples of the entire project. Both samples I happened to use for guitar strumming and the melody during the song's outro section. I used two different ones since the melody has two distinct low and high sections. You have the and then the yes, not with the voice cracking, but yeah. And using one for the whole melody would kind of sound weird given how much I would need to pitch it up and down. So in my version, the samples for the first half were taken from DJ Shadow's Organ Donor. I chopped up the organ samples from that song, like the which I'm sure a lot of you might be familiar with. Well, actually, this is a pitch down. I pitched them up and down a lot. I just took those organ samples, which I think themselves were sampled from a Giorgio Moroder song. I chopped up the organ samples, like I said, and I used the chops to recreate the lower part of the guitar melody. This required a lot of like careful stretching and fading because the organ donor melody does contain like a good amount of reverb on its own, and like the reverb from previous notes like bleeds into like the later notes, and I didn't want it to like sound out of key or anything or like clash with the rest of the samples I used. I also put like a bit of right channel low pass EQ here because I figured it would help with like any potential melodic clashing. Some regular EQ here, some not even OTT, just like regular multiband compression, just a little bit on the high band. And then the second half, which I redid using the iconic synth riff from MGMT's Time to Pretend. I actually came up with this idea way before I did the organ donor one, and if we're being honest, I do think this half of the melody ended up sounding a lot smoother than the organ donor half. In fact, this is also one of my favorite sample chops in this project that I did. Alright, that's the main melody that I chopped. Needs no introduction. And then I did the same thing here. I rearranged the original to create the other melody, and then I pitched all these samples up and down and everything. I should also mention that both of these, well, not here, but both of them do have a lot of like high pass EQ and compression on them too. And then alongside that, I also looped a sample from the intro of Time to Pretend as part of a backing melody for the whole thing. And here it's mixed with the rest of the stuff. Oh, I forgot to turn off the Mama's Lamp sample from earlier. Yeah, here it is with everything else. And that's gonna be it. That's all the samples. I explained everything. There's a kick here that I use as sidechain, but I'm not gonna explain that because that's not a real sample. But there we go. That's everything explained. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm really grateful for the positive reception that this video received, that this project received, and then of course the previous one. Like, doing this whole newer samples thing has changed my life. I'm thank you. I thank everyone for, you know, watching them and, you know, asking about all the samples and everything. Like, I cannot thank you enough. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of this video, whether it be like, you know, sampling information, like sampling techniques or skills, or, you know, just general music production information, or I mean, whether you got something out of this or whether you watched it to just fall asleep to. Like, I'm really happy that you stuck around for the whole thing. And once again, I'm going to say one more time, thank you for this and for the reception of for such positive reception on the newer samples projects. The next one in this series is going to be Fatboy Slim, but until then, I'll see you guys in another video or with another project. And hope you guys have a great day. And I guess bye for now.
At age 6, I was born without a face.